Hello, everyone. Welcome to a special meeting of the Pioneer Valley Regional School District Committee. It is Tuesday, May 3rd, 2022. We are here in the PVRS library, and we're also meeting via Google Meet. This meeting is being held via Google Meet in accordance with the Governor of Massachusetts' March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. In addition, a link to view the school committee meeting will be on the website at pvrsdk12.org, or you can view it at Facebook.com/BNC television. The public is welcome to attend in person or to watch via the links above, but in the event of an issue with the links, the public meeting in person shall continue to proceed. All right, so it is now 5:09 p.m. and we will begin our meeting with a roll call. Melissa.
Melissa Gary, Bernardston here.
Jeannie Milton, Bernardston, present.
Stephanie Winslow, Northfield here.
Alan Genovese, Warwick, present.
Michelle Geruso, Leiden here.
Rita Dastu, Northfield here.
Robin Knipe, Leiden here.
Kieran.
Karen O'Neill, Leiden here.
David Young, here.
Great, and Julie Burke, Northfield here. We do have two other school committee members who will be joining us. They'll just be a bit late. So tonight we are going to be conducting interviews. We have 3 finalists for the Superintendent of Schools. I wanted to take a moment, though, just to do some explanation of the rubric that we have with regards to the interview questions, and also just to explain how we will be asking the questions of each candidate.
Right, you want to announce the candidates?
Sure. So at 5 p.m., we will have our current interim superintendent, Patricia Kinsella. At 6 p.m., we will have Patricia Gardner. And at 7 p.m., we will have Cynthia Kennedy. We will then have a brief discussion amongst the school committee and then have public comments at around 8 p.m. And then we will move into around 8:30 p.m. discussion and potential vote on a selection of a permanent superintendent. So Alan, do you want to explain the rubric?
Yeah, perfect, thank you. So there are 10 questions that we will be asking each candidate. So we'll be starting with, you are going to start, right?
Sure.
We're each going to ask a question. So the purpose of the rubrics is that the committee had been able to look at, is to really anchor the thinking in terms of what kinds of things a candidate may be talking about as they're responding to that question. It is not meant to, if they get a lot of check marks, it means, that it was a spectacular answer, or if they get fewer. What it's about is it just gives a context for topics that a candidate may wish to speak to during these questions. At the end, the candidate will have an opportunity to give us some information that didn't come out in the interview. I want to also direct folks in the public that when we get to the special education question, which is question 4, at the end of this document, there's an addendum that talks about the academic intervention pyramid. Since that question deals with the educational programs that we offer for students for universal education right through where they get special services. And they refer to those as tier 1, 2, and 3. And we wanted the committee to just refresh on what those tiers were and what kinds of interventions you would be doing at each one of those tiers. So that's a tool you want to refer to when the candidate is talking about question 4. Other than that, it's meant to use as a guide, and then you'll have a place for personal notes, and obviously at some point you'll be ranking them or rating them according to pretty much the same rubrics that we use for general testing, from moving to highly advanced or proficient.
Right.
So that's it. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. All right, so we are 15 minutes behind or so. So without further ado, we'll get started. So Interim Superintendent Kinsella, welcome.
Thank you.
In front of you, you have the questions that we're going to be asking you, as well as a scrap piece of paper, so.
Thank you.
And feel free to pause at any time and get clarity or anything like that. All right, so the first question, Melissa Gary.
All right, so first question. If student success is a function and part of strong leadership, best teaching practices, a comprehensive curriculum, and well-maintained safe facilities, how will you, as our superintendent, address these issues to promote student learning?
Thank you for the question. Thank you for having me here tonight. I agree that student success is indeed an outcome of these many factors. The role of a superintendent requires that the superintendent pay attention to multiple systems simultaneously. And perhaps even more importantly, the effective superintendent knows how to prioritize their attention. Not all tasks merit equal attention. Knowing how to organize one's time both throughout a single day and throughout a season is important. So I would say that it depends on context. So for example, while we have had issues in this district with some facilities, i.e. the mold issue at Bernardston, I spoke about that briefly earlier this afternoon. In general, we have well-maintained, safe facilities. So there are some aspects of safety and security that I would need to pay attention to sooner rather than later next year. We are fortunate not to be in the situation where we have exposed asbestos. We are in compliance with building code. We do not have fenestration that is leaking all over the place. So facilities, while I love working on facilities, that wouldn't necessarily be my biggest priority next year, except for that facilities review. I believe that my attention next year, were I to stay, would be well focused on working with my leadership team, beginning a comprehensive program of professional collaborative development with them to strengthen their ability to lead their teams. So for the building principals, that would mean improving their ability to design agendas for faculty meetings, improve their ability to facilitate effective learning meetings where there is less focus on business and more focus on learning, improving their ability to provide supervisory support to educators. I think my attention would be well focused on working with building administrators on developing teacher leadership skills. How will we create time, and this will take more than 1 year, how will we create time for our educators to collaborate effectively with each other? And it's more than simply purchasing substitute coverage, for example, for teachers to meet. It means developing a program of professional development so that teachers increase their skills in working with each other, creating peer observation time so that staff may go into each other's classrooms and with clear objectives and with some protocols for how they would debrief what it is they've observed in each other's classrooms. Those are just a few ideas, but I hope that gives you a sense of how I think about managing multiple systems at the same time.
Great, thank you.
Before we go on to the next one, I'm going to be the timekeeper. I think we forgot to say that. So we have 3 minutes. You were on the spot, so good job.
Thank you.
But I do have a fancy little
I like
sign
that.
here
Thank you.
to give you a 45-second warning. Self-made.
Thank you.
No. All right. Jim Bell, question number 2.
Okay. What methods will you use to keep yourself, school committee, and other stakeholders current on important community and school district-related matters? How would you go about establishing good relationships within the school community and strong public relationships in our towns?
I hope that the district update, the newsletter that we inaugurated this year, has been helpful in communications. I've certainly received a lot of feedback from parents and guardians and community members about the district update, that it provides timely information. I have received more than a few comments about the lack of fluff in the district update and appreciation that it's succinct It provides the necessary information and doesn't bog people down with extraneous or repeated information. We will, if I am here, be working on an overhaul of the district and school websites. I met with our Director of Technology again today. There will be a survey going out to our community by the end of this week, asking staff and families, school committee, what your experience is with our websites, how you prefer to be kept informed, what are your preferred platforms or channels, and we will use that information to take a look at possible vendors for a website overhaul. That's in the budget for this year. And Chris Fontaine, our Director of Technology, has already been reaching out to potential vendors. So we have the district update that pushes out to people via email. I do have my fantastic Twitter account with about 60 followers at this point, so feel free to follow that. We'll have our sort of, I don't want to say static, but the websites are a location that people can push into to get information. And I am guessing that when we conduct this survey, there will be some key themes that emerge, and that I'm guessing, because I've done this before, that people will say they're looking for a website that is mobile responsive, because not everybody uses a desktop or even a laptop. Many people access our sites with a phone. They will want it to have timely and accurate information, and they will want extraneous information eliminated. I am guessing that those are the themes that we'll see. People will say they don't want bells and whistles. They want a clean, clear, effective website. I now have the ability to see what any of the other administrators are doing with SMORE. So I hope that this summer we have some days set aside already for admin retreat time. One of our pieces of work will be taking a look at each other's newsletters and giving each other feedback about what we find to be effective and what we think we could do better.
Great, thank you. All right. Jeannie, the next question, question 3.
Question 3 refers to budget and finance. Tell us about your experience building, implementing, and executing financial plans and budget priorities. What have those experiences taught you, and how will you use what you've learned to build an optimal budget?
You know, I realized I hadn't shared with many people in this community some of my early experiences when I first entered the world of work with a Latino women's organization in Dorchester, Mujeres Unidas en Acción, where I was a tutor and then teacher, and I then became the grant writer and director of development. I had no experience and no training for this. Mujeres had a fire, and it was one of those experiences where one has to step up to the plate and learn fast and become effective fast. And in the aftermath of the fire, I put together a fundraising campaign that pulled us through. I greatly increased the amount of money we got from grants. I increased our private foundation support. I increased our federal government support. So those were early formative experiences for me in learning about how to budget, how to seek funding, and how to work with others in managing very tight finances. You can imagine a small nonprofit, we never had enough money. I have then, in public education, worked in relation to budgets in multiple capacities. When I was a curriculum coordinator in Brookline, for instance, I had a large budget. Not as large as here, but it was in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Brookline at that time was interesting in that the principals had no money. They were given no budget. The budget at the elementary level rested with us. And so I, budgeted for several dozen people. I had to build that budget across 8 buildings. I had to build it in conjunction with what the folks at the high school were doing, and I quite enjoyed that process. I have then worked on budget in several different school districts as assistant superintendent. I have worked hand in hand with the budget manager, and the budget process here this year was challenging. It wasn't optimal. It wasn't what we hoped it would be. It wasn't what we set out for it to be, and we pulled through, and I am so glad to report, as you know, that our budget passed unanimously as part of the omnibus warrants in Warwick and Northfield last night. So thank you to everybody here who worked on that. As you know, this year's budget, we had grander ambitions for what we might be able to do with the FY23 budget, and it quickly became apparent that we needed to focus on a level services budget and keeping all of our current employees. Interim superintendent, interim business managers, this was not the time to get fancy, and it wasn't the time to make long-term decisions that could affect the structure of the district.
Thank you. All right, Stephanie, number 4, special education.
In looking to expand our inclusive practice across the district, how would you navigate those who view special education in a separate silo to do general education? If special education services are seen at Tier 3, how do you determine the effectiveness and relationship between Tiers 1, 2, and 3 services?
Patricia Polacco, the famed children's book illustrator and writer, has a wonderful text called Junkyard Wonders. And I think it's based on some of her experience. And it's about a group of students in special education who are in a sub-separate classroom. They don't call it that. And in that school, that room is called the junkyard. And Patricia Polacco's story relates a wonderful teacher who talks to her kids about being the junkyard wonders. And they pick themselves up, and it's a lovely, lovely story. I mentioned earlier, I am the parent of a young man with significant special needs. I had educated many, many children for many years and been in many IEP meetings before I had to sit in my first IEP meeting for my own son, and that changed everything. I thought I understood, and I didn't. I didn't understand what it felt like to have to advocate for my child, sometimes in a district that, well, I love Boston, amazing educators. Sometimes the system worked, and sometimes it didn't. So I have been spoiled because my kids, both my son with special needs and my daughter, who was a typically developing peer, attended one of the very best schools in Boston, the Mary Lyon School, named after the same Mary Lyon out here, whose foundation supports public education. The Mary Lyon School was set up to provide services to children whose needs were so great that they would typically be sent out of the district to a day placement or a residential placement. And it was fully inclusive, so there might be 5 children with special needs and up to 10 students without. That's how my daughter attended the school. It was a seamless program. The academics and the arts were spectacular, and these were some of the toughest to educate kids in the district, and they did it right, and they were relentless. It was a little shoebox of a building. There was nothing fancy, nothing special, except for their philosophy, their approach, their rigorous adherence to their beliefs about what made for a good program. They had therapists on site. When kids were having trouble, they didn't empty classrooms, they pushed into classrooms. An absolutely spectacular program, and I am forever, what's the word, not spoiled, ruined, because I have seen the Mary Lyon up close, and I know what it can look like. And so I look forward to supporting the continued excellent work of the special educators in this district. We have phenomenal people who help children with special needs and youth with special needs stay in integrated classrooms. And for those programs we have that are sub-separate, boy, anybody with a child of high school, middle or high school age who had significant cognitive needs, spending one's day in Danielle Denenfeld's room is a mighty fine way to live and to become educated. So shout out to my friend Angie over there for the work she does in that classroom.
All right, number 5, lessons learned from 2020 through 2022. Pretty broad, okay. We are emerging from a very challenging set of circumstances, and our budget prospects remain in a state of flux. In the meantime, our parents and students have had a difficult year due to the pandemic. What are some of the things you think about as you get ready to lead our district through the social and emotional needs of students and faculty?
It could be so easy for us to take the visual cue that most masks are gone, not all, and think that the pandemic is over. And that visual cue, that reading of the visual cue would, we would, that at our peril, would we make that analysis. The pandemic is not over, and even more so, the after effects of the pandemic are not over. Some of our kids are not well. Some of our staff are not well. This has been exhausting for everybody. Sometimes I wonder, I think this is wishful thinking. As a former early childhood educator, I can tell you, you know, the little ones leave in June, and then you see them the next September, barely 2.5 months later, and they look like different people. They've grown, they've matured. The things they can do in September, you think, gosh, remember what they were like a year ago. Sometimes, and this is magical thinking, I hope maybe after this summer, maybe after some break from school, some of the kids will come back and it will be better. Maybe after this summer, some of our staff will come back and they will have had an extended chance to regroup. Maybe I will feel better after this summer. We can't pretend that everything is okay. We need to provide more supports to our families, hence keep our fingers crossed. It looks like we could do before and after school in the elementary buildings this year. I don't want to promise it, but we're in conversation. I've sent off the draft MOU to the attorney for review. My sense is that a steady hand at the helm is helpful. Not trying to make enormous changes too quickly. Asking people, as we did with our elementary educators in terms of, do you want to make some adjustments to practice this spring? Asking folks what they need, and maybe trying to bring in some wellness programming for staff. It's something we've talked about on the admin team. I think it would be an appropriate use of ESSER funding. So I've given you some ideas. I don't know, but what I am convinced of is that we are not through this.
Thank you. So Alan, number 6, working with municipal leaders and government.
So can you give us examples of how you have worked with community leaders to build support for public schools in previous positions?
Mm-hmm. So in Canton, when I came in, Canton was on the tail end of a facilities review process that had been enormous. Part of my role was figuring out ways of sharing information with the public and with town officials that helped them understand the ideas that had been brought forward and what it would take to make some of those ideas happen. So my role was developing graphics and distributing those graphics, sorting through information to help town officials have a sense of what this timeline would be, what months and in what years, because this was a multi-year process. Key votes would be taking place, what the numbers looked like. In Lincoln, part of my work was with the Lincoln School Foundation. So that was a nonprofit, and I worked in Brookline with, Brookline has a different name for it. So in multiple districts, I've worked with folks who, in town, who are school supporters, who are raising funds, who are philanthropic, and who were trying to collaborate with the district in a way that supported the district's agenda, but also supported their own agenda, right? Because they're a 501c3, they have a right to figure out what their priorities were. I really enjoyed that work. I really enjoyed the process of helping review grants with those folks and being a liaison between those community-based organizations and our staff. I have tended to have good relationships with town officials, including safety officials, and I've enjoyed the process of getting to know folks in our 4 towns. I feel particularly proud, I will say, of the change in the tenor, it seems, of the communication and relationship with Warwick. The fact that our colleagues in Warwick feel like the district is engaging with them productively and respectfully is deeply gratifying on a professional and personal level.
Thank you. Number 7, Michelle, parent-related questions.
Okay. Visibility is something that is very important to our community. However, visibility with a connection is what our students need most. They can never have enough role models or people in their corner. Given the demands of being superintendent, how would you balance the demands of your responsibilities with the critical importance of your presence? And describe how you currently foster meaningful connections with students, and share some ideas on how you might expand making meaningful connections.
I like living in the place where I work. I know for some folks, they like the distance and the drive home, the half hour, let's say, feels good to them. It helps them decompress. I prefer my 4.5 minutes. I will be honest. And I don't mind the going into MIMS and having some of our pioneer students behind the counter, and they recognize me, and I've got my barn boots on, and my sweatshirt is filthy. And I like going into Kidders and having Dave tease me about something. I like calling up the Farmers Co-op and talking to Jeff, the manager, and I say, Jeff, how you doing? And he answers, better than you. I feel embedded, and I like feeling embedded. I like seeing the kids around town. When I lived in Jamaica Plain and taught in Jamaica Plain, those were my neighbors' kids. Those were kids that, if they were the same age as my kids, they were in my home, and I was managing, being a teacher and a professional and a parent whose kids were peers of some of my students. And how do you manage those roles? How do you keep boundaries? I feel very comfortable in my personal ethics, and so I never worry about how I'm behaving in public, and the district doesn't have to worry about how I'm behaving in public. So in terms of being a real-life role model for kids, I'm comfortable. I'm good with that. I enjoy my interactions. I really like that I've helped Ryan, our school committee representative, start getting out into the elementary buildings. I've really enjoyed mentoring him. I love that our seniors took on the real-life meaningful task of distributing masks to students and staff across the district. I think the more opportunities we can give our students of all ages to contribute to the work of our community, the better. I think it's great that a group of students in grades 7 through 12 have a set of questions ready for our principal finalists tomorrow, right? And the only adults who will be in the room with them are the candidate, myself, and the 3 teachers who work with them, right? This is their time. I feel good about that. I would love to think of ways that we can deepen opportunities for students to contribute to the running of their buildings, and how we help them think about a vision for our district. What can we be doing that better meets their needs? I tend to connect well with students of different ages, and I look forward to doing more of that.
Thank you. All right, number 8, Raina. This is regarding student-centered questions.
So what do you think are some of the competencies that our students need to master before they get to the high school and also before they graduate?
These are questions I would love for our community to explore. Because what we value is what we will educate for. What we value is what we will design our programming around. And discerning what we value, coming to shared agreement about what we value, is a process that will help our communities identify themselves. So I'll give a quick vision. Don't hold me to this, but just an imagining. I've said in multiple contexts that I think some of the core strengths of our school district are our location within an agricultural environment. Our location next to so much beautiful protected land. Our 90-plus acre campus here, our beautiful elementary campuses. Our location in communities that have an extraordinary number of makers and creators and doers and builders of all different types. our communities in which multiple generations have sent their children to the school district and feel such a deep connection. Well, what if we educated with the environment in mind? Just bear with me for a second, a vision. What if we felt that place-based education were so important that our students, in order to graduate from middle school, had to be able to walk a habitat with a teacher and someone else's parent and a couple of community members. And our 8th graders would have to decide if they wanted to walk through a wetlands, through a pine forest, through a deciduous forest, and talk coherently about what they observed and talk about the species that inhabited, flora and fauna, that ecosystem. What if we decided knowing one's physical place here in the valley and in the hill towns was what mattered a lot to us? How might our education day-to-day look different? What if we had forest school for our young ones? What if we had more modified forest school for our elementary students? And I'm making this up, and they spent a day a week, a full day every week outside. I don't know if that's of interest to our community, but the process of talking about our shared values has to take place, and that will take time. That would take a full year if we are to design a school district that will be durable, that will attract people, that will provide inspiring professional opportunities for all of our staff in all roles at all levels of the organization. Those are the kinds of questions I would like to explore about the student experience. And of course, the students have to be central to the entire conversation.
Thank you. Number 9, Robin, regarding student retention.
What do you see as the foundational steps to improve the level of education district-wide to retain students within our district until they graduate?
So there are some students for whom we simply will not be the district of long-term choice. Their families move because of a job. Okay, we'll put those to the side. There are some students who will want a vocational education. Good for them, good for Franklin Tech. Right? We are their sister organization. We can't try to be Franklin Tech. We can't try to be a mini Greenfield High. We need to be something different. And that is part of this process of identifying what are our core strengths, what are our core values, and how do we build around those? And it's not reinventing the wheel. There's so much in place already that would meet, that expresses these core values. Having said all that, let's take a look at how we're doing. Let's take a more careful, closer, shared look at the student experience. Let's have admin and teachers spend half days, spend full days pretending to be students and seeing what the student experience is like. I've done that in different districts. It's illuminating to understand what the experience of a student is like. Sometimes we take things for granted, and then sitting through an 11th grade day, the schedule is exhausting, and there are some things that we realize are sitting through what experience is like for a 2nd grader. Again, we need to figure out what we're doing well, what is meeting students' authentic needs, and where are we not meeting needs as well as we could, whether that be academic, intellectual needs. Every person is different, kids are different cognitively. Whose cognitive needs are we meeting and whose needs are we not meeting? And I don't want to say it's okay, we should be doing a super job with every child, but we can't ask perfection of ourselves. But we can ask to do better, and that's all of us, including administration, everybody. How is school great for kids, and how is school not great for kids? Because there's some kids for whom school is really not that great. And I'm not talking about this district only. School, in quotes, in general, isn't a great fit for some kids. And my hypothesis is that when we explore what might make school better for some kids, I am betting that that will also make school better for some adults and improve their professional experience working in the district.
Thank you. I think we'll circle back to Melissa. Unless Karen or David, do you have the interview questions in front of you? Oh, I'm sorry, Nathan. You snuck in.
I'm sorry, I was.
No, that's okay. Do you mind taking question number 10 to speaking to commitment to all students?
As our educational leader, how would you ensure that our commitment to educating and supporting the needs of all of our students and families is done in a way that provides the best opportunities for each and every student?
I think some of what I've been talking about fits in with this question. We need to understand what the needs of our students are. We need to understand what the needs of our families are. Again, if I'm here in conjunction with that long-term facilities master plan, we simply have to have a long-term conversation about the status of the district, the state of the district, and where we want to go. And that will need, of necessity, to happen in tandem with the Six-Town Regionalization Planning Board work. That's a train that's running. That process, that study is ongoing. And we need to think about ourselves as a district simultaneously. If we stay intact as a district, what do we want to be? Again, I've been fortunate in working with a real range of students and families. I was a bilingual educator for many years. My students were mostly Puerto Rican and Dominican, some Central American. I lived in Central America at one point. And that was so good for me to learn. I grew up white and suburban in Massachusetts, and I didn't know much about anything that had to do with race in this country. So that helped me, that opened worlds to me, understanding how people of different cultures view things differently, view school differently, the importance of education, the importance of not judging, the importance of assuming that everybody is waking up in the morning trying to do their best. They walk out the door hoping to get through, hoping to make it, hoping to contribute. And the same thing with our kids. Sometimes I think it can be easy for us as adults in schools to scrutinize kids and scrutinize their misbehavior at time or their less than stellar performance and wonder what it is about the child that's getting in the way, when sometimes it's us. Sometimes it's the adults who are getting in the way and who need to change our behaviors. So for me, this commitment to all students is about being willing to have honest conversations with each other about our work, being willing to understand that all families have different experiences, not making judgments, not making assumptions, and gently checking in and communicating with each other as adults when we notice that we are engaging in that kind of making of assumptions or judgments.
Thank you. So that includes all of the questions that we had for you. Do you have any questions or comments for us?
I don't think I have questions at this point because I've been here with you for the past 8 months.
So the official question, Alan just reminded me, is there anything that you would like to share that didn't come out in this interview that you would like us to know?
Thank you, Alan. I think I'm a good fit for the district. And it remains to be seen if you all think I'm a good fit for the district. I think my background as an educator who's worked in different environments is helpful. We haven't even begun to talk about instruction. We haven't even begun to think about teacher professional development. We haven't even begun to do leadership work with educators or administrators. We haven't even begun to talk about long-term professional development for custodians and administrative assistants and instructional assistants and food service workers. I know how to develop that programming. I know how to run it. I'm organized. I communicate well, I hope, both verbally and in writing. I'm a systems thinker, and I don't mind getting my hands dirty with the nitty-gritty details. I try hard to connect well with people in all types of roles at all levels, and I have an open door for folks to come and talk to me about their issues, and they do. So I think that I could be the steady hand at the helm who also invites our community to some imagining that takes us far outside the box and far away from where we are now to contemplate who we might be and what we might be able to offer our children and youth in the coming years. I would welcome that journey. I would like to take that journey with you, and we'll see.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you. Leave this here.
All right, so now we will have a brief discussion here with the committee. Is there anyone that would like to begin? Karen.
Could I start with the total score categories? Was it not meant that anybody would get a total score of 50? Because 10 times 5 is 50, and I'm just wondering about your application of the numbers to where you end up. I know it's a minor thing, but.
Just a comment. I think that score where things were put together, we had 9 questions last time. So I
Yeah.
would say that any score that is in the 45 and up range or 40 range would be considered exceedingly proficient. So for those that are that don't have this document, as people at the table listen to the responses, they would assign a point value for not proficient as a 1, partially proficient as a 2, proficient as a 3, highly proficient as a 4, and exceedingly proficient as a 5. So that's to your point, Karen, on the score. I think just to put this in perspective, when we as we come to the deliberation part, if people use this document to tally up their scores for all of the candidates, it might make sense then to look at each candidate and their score and have a conversation about who the best fit would be. The candidates that came to us were recommended by the screening committee that they could live with any one of these candidates. As you know, the job of the school committee now is to find out which one is the best fit, so we can talk about how that might work later.
Okay,
Was that all, Karen, for now?
that's all.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Michelle?
I just wanted to let everyone know that the reference comments I passed out so you could look at them. I made sure that I just wrote down the comments. I asked the same questions for all 3 candidates. I can provide those to you, but unfortunately, I forgot them at home where I asked most of the questions. So you do have those in front of you
Nope.
for all 3 candidates. Oh, Joanne said she sent them to you, Karen.
Must have been very late today, and I had to go out to a photocopy place to make copies of things today because I'm very far away. So
She just emailed them to you around 5 o'clock. If you
yeah,
want to look in your email.
well, I have the one device.
Oh, okay.
All right. Any discussion about interim superintendent Kinsella?
No, I would just like to ask Tyler that I could see the beginning part of her interview, which I unfortunately missed, up to question 4. No, so I didn't, when we get to a break. You could have that for me.
Yeah, this is.
Okay. Okay.
I have a
Um,
comment.
Oh, go ahead.
I have worked with Pat on the district agreement
Just a little closer with your.
committee, and it was a challenging time, and I think that she really showed really good leadership in bringing us together, kind of pulling us in, and we made progress, I think, and I think that I definitely saw a skill with her and like helping us to figure out where we were going and pulling us together to do that. So I just want to share that was a good experience. I also like, okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Robin. I do have experiences to share that I have with Patricia as the chair. I was trying to think of the right time to share them, and I was going to save them just for when we were in our discussion and potential vote. But if people want me to share that now, I certainly can, but. Yep, Melissa?
I'm curious, since Alan just handed out the site visit observations, I'm wondering if we take these 15 minutes or those few minutes we had the interview and now share out maybe what the site visits were like and kind of put everything in a package. And then as a full committee, after citizens' comments, then we can start sharing perspectives, but use this time to kind of wrap up the process that we
We do have, so we now have 5 minutes.
Okay.
So we can certainly, that's a great idea. So Alan had the
Right.
site visit along with Nathan, I believe.
Right, so for Patricia Casella, Nathan and I did the site visit, and what I'm going to do is just highlight the things that we saw that came to the surface when we talked to different people. And so you'll see under the N, that's Nathan and myself, the A, and I'll just go through so the public can get an idea of the attributes and the strengths that we saw in Patricia Kinsella. Problem-solving skills were evident, the site visit planning, the district planning. There was a notation for inspiring and promoting individuals within the district, knowledge of curriculum, contributions to the district, task-oriented, knowledge of responsibilities, had a check mark, dedicated to the position, work ethics, very high communication with staff, administrators, teachers. Her organizational skills were evident, use of social media, networking, and marketing. And when we looked at the attributes, we noted confidence, cooperative, enthusiastic, ethical, honest, knowledgeable, leadership, motivated, respectful, responsive, organized thoughts and speaking. We certainly saw that this evening. And then steady in terms of thinks quickly on her feet and soundly. So those were some of the attributes that we had noted in the site visits and speaking to the administrative team. We had an open forum in the Kiva, and so that's some of the information we gleaned.
Yeah,
And
just
then-
to clarify, I have not checked off on any of those. I would check off on all of them.
Okay, I was going to ask that.
Yeah, that's.
I tried to do the ones that we both.
Yeah, and
looked at.
and
Go ahead.
this was done as I was leaving, so not like from the house to come here. So I'm sorry, not all of you got to check it, but I'm just to make sure I would check off on all of them.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then you also included a narrative summary with a lot of
Yes, probably.
Comments.
I should share this for the public.
Yeah.
Is a strong communicator and uses a wide variety of modalities to reach out and inform stakeholders. And some examples, the district website, emails, newsletters, and so forth. Is using the ESSER funds wisely, is a good active listener, encourages people to participate, is an excellent presenter, is extremely well organized, is a skilled facilitator, recognizes there are many things that require attention in the district, is mindful in helping students with their emotional and social needs, looking for opportunities to do so. Plans on organizing a retreat with the administrative team in the summer, is comfortable with elementary staff, excellent visibility, looking forward to more visibility in the middle school and high school, has a very strong work ethics, long hours, attention to detail, high personal standards, knows what good teaching looks like and promotes it through conversations. She's a dedicated professional, works toward what is best for the students as her focus, open and available, or open door policy, works toward full transparency, honest, good communicator, enjoys her work, is able to lead a diverse group of people, good relationships with towns, provides easy to understand documents, well prepared for meetings, working on understanding the intricacies of a regional school budget, responds promptly, looking at more long-term planning. Example is the future capital needs, works closely with staff and health officials during the pandemic to provide support for faculty and students, and is a good fit for the district, were some of the takeaways.
Great, thank you. Okay, anything further? It's now 6 o'clock, so we were able to make up a little time here. Great, I think we're ready for our next finalist, who is Patricia Gardner. And Karen, if you don't mind going on mute, please.
Okay, I did turn off the air conditioning and I'm fine.
I didn't see that that was my chair.
Hi there.
Hi, good evening.
So we have here Patricia Gardner. And Patricia, I'm not sure you've had an opportunity to meet the full school committee yet. So we'll just go around the table here quickly, and then we have a couple of our members who are attending remotely as well.
Okay, thank you.
Pat.
Hi.
Melissa. We spent today together.
Nice.
I'm Jim Bell from Bernardston.
Yeah.
Welcome back to Franklin County. I'm Jeannie Milton from Bernardston.
Hi, Jeannie, thank you.
Stephanie Winslow from Northfield.
Hi, Stephanie, again.
Julie Burke from Northfield.
Still Alan Genovese from Warwick. Nice to see you again.
Michelle DeRusso from Leiden. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
Raina Dasty, I'm from Northfield.
Robin Knight from Leiden.
And then
Karen O'Neill from Leiden.
Hi, Karen.
And
I'm
David.
David Young, and I'm in Warwick.
Hi, David.
Great.
I like David's background.
Right. It's vintage pots and pans.
Yeah.
It's great. All right, so welcome here with us. You have a list of the questions that we'll be asking you in front of you. You have 3 minutes just in order to keep things on schedule to answer each question. And Stephanie has this beautiful sign that she made
Very
to alert you when there's 45 seconds left. We're going to go around the table here and ask, have the opportunity for each school committee member to ask you a question.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll start with Melissa, and her question is regarding the superintendent's role in improving outcomes.
Okay, all set?
Yeah.
Okay. If student success is a function and part of strong leadership, best teaching practices, a comprehensive curriculum, and well-maintained safe facilities, how will you, as our superintendent, address these issues to promote student learning?
Great, thank you. I think that I would just like to start by saying, and I say this over and over and over, if our schools are not safe, nothing else matters. Nothing. It doesn't matter about the learning. It doesn't matter about anything if our schools are not safe. So I think especially in the society that we live in today, that is first and foremost, is to make sure that you have safe schools. Strong leadership is, you know, I always like to use the analogy. I mean, I'm a sports person from way back, and, you know, if you like sports and you start seeing that referees throw a flag on every play, it becomes annoying. You know, I feel like as a strong leader, you can lead from the back sometimes. You know, I want principals to run their schools. You know, we should hire the best administrators. And if they're not running the schools properly, then, you know, that's my problem, you know, and I think that that's the part of a superintendent's evaluation is how well a superintendent inspires, encourages, and helps promote leadership. The best teaching practices are teachers that know how to help students navigate the world. You know, some of my answers, if you've seen me already, I repeat them because I believe them. You know, having curriculum, having the right curriculum, following DESE standards, those are all super important. But it takes a really special person to be a successful teacher. And I always say, and I said this earlier, you know, when I hire teachers, I want somebody that likes kids. I want somebody that, you know, is a good person. But secondly, I want them to know the curriculum. And thirdly, I want them to be, you know, a pretty ethical and moral person. You know, I always say moral is kind of a tough one, but certainly ethical. So I think that those things are incredibly important. And those are things that, you know, are the function of the superintendent to work with the leadership of the school to make sure that we hire the best principals, to make sure that we hire the best teachers, to make sure that we hire the best paraprofessionals, to make sure that we have the best, you know, maintenance custodial staff. And, you know, one of the first things I said when I walked in each one of the buildings today, they are spotless. So that in itself really says so much about the school district. But those are some things that I you know, are part of who I am.
Great, thank you. Number 2, Jim Bell will ask you a question regarding communications.
What methods will you use to keep yourself, the school committee, and other stakeholders current on important community and school district-related matters? How would you go about establishing good relationships within the school community and strong public relationships in our town?
You know, part of this is, you know, being able to work with your school committee to start and find out the ways that they want you to communicate. I am very communicative. I send out a lot of emails. For a while, we did a Facebook page in Palmer, but it got pretty negative, so we decided not to use it for a while. You know, social media can be tough. First of all, I communicate regularly with the chair of my committee and with my committee. At school committee meetings, I always do, you know, the superintendent's report, but we try to make it, you know, a little meaty. The other thing that I started in Palmer, which has worked out really, really well, is I have a superintendent's advisory committee. Every principal has to have a school advisory committee, but I started a superintendent's advisory committee, and parents, townspeople, you know, people who have a valid interest and a positive interest in our schools can join it. And if you think about good things that came out of COVID when we had to start doing them in Zoom, it really kind of blossomed because we were able to have more people come. You know, people are able to join by Zoom sometimes when they can do it from home, or they can step out of work for 10 minutes or whatever. So that's one of the big things that I've tried to do to meet the community. I think one of the other things about establishing good relationships within the school community and the public is to get out, you know, to, you know, take a lunch break every now and then and eat in town and meet people when you're there, you know, to go in and, you know, be proud of where you work and also to, you know, just support local businesses. I mean, I think those are really important ways to do it. I also think when you go to games or you go to choral events, but you have to talk to people. You know, I always joke in Turner's, you know, Turner's has Scotty's, and I called it the mall because it was, you know, and my guidance secretary, Sharon, worked there, and, you know, I used to ask her what's going on at the mall, what they had good to eat, and, you know, you just build relationships, but you get to know the town a little bit. You get to know the businesses. So that would be one of the first things that I would really try to do.
Great. Okay. Question 3 with Nathan regarding budget and finance.
Yeah. Tell us about your experience building, implementing, and executing financial plans and budget priorities. What have those experiences taught you, and how would you use what you've learned to build an optimal budget?
You know, when I started taking a look at Pioneer Valley, and, you know, one of the things that intrigued me was, you know, the fact that, you know, you, as a district, you know, there had been some struggling in your budget. And I'm a person that really likes to challenge myself. And so as I take a look at your budget, it kind of takes me back to when I started in Palmer. And I, you know, if you were here earlier, you've already heard some of this, but when I started in Palmer in January of 2016, the budget was $200,000, you know, over, you know, where we had to be. And so we had to make some tough decisions. You know, one of the decisions that we made was we eliminated our librarians. We put an aide in there, and very capable aide, but we eliminated that. We had to eliminate some department heads. And, you know, but I made a pledge to myself and my school committee. I said, we're not going to find ourselves in this position in a couple of years. So the next year we really had to work on it. But, you know, I said in my original interview, and I believe this, you know, I think every school should have their own budget. You know, I think you break it down. I call them buckets of money. I try to make everything simple. You know, in Palmer, our budget's this year is going to be about $17 million. And I say we have 17 buckets of money. And when you take a look at our benefits and our salaries, that only leaves us in our transportation, that leaves us 3 buckets of money. You know, so I always really try to break it down so people understand what that budget is. You know, and, you know, my experience with building budgets and my experience is part of keeping teachers and retention is how well you do your budget. You know, I was talking today to a couple of teachers who are 0.6. Nobody wants to be 0.6, you know. And people that are 0.6 will start looking for other jobs generally, unless they're just, you know, entranced by where they are and they're able to make it. But also just looking at the operating costs, what's going on, where we're putting our money, and where the values are, you know. So, you know, I think starting in January was very difficult because I was blamed for the budget that was a huge, that you know, was a huge loss. You know, coming into a budget that someone else has done, you know, it's definitely not your budget, but it kind of gives you a year of dress rehearsal to figure out what you need to do for the next year. But that was something that really drew me.
Thank you. All right, question 4 with Jeannie is regarding special education.
In looking to expand our inclusive practice across the district, how would you navigate those who view special ed in a separate silo to general education? If special education services are seen at Tier 3, how do you determine the effectiveness and relationship between Tiers 1, 2, and 3 services?
I 100% believe that students deserve free and appropriate public education. To navigate it, I like inclusive practices. I had some conversations about it today, although they were, you know, not in depth, but those would be conversations that I had. I believe that special education students, I mean, no doubt you are going to have some sub-separate classrooms. You know, you're just going to have them. And those sub-separates save you from putting a number of districts out of class and, out of district placements, which are incredibly expensive. And I know you have some of those. So to a certain extent, those sub-separate classes at the same time allow students to stay in their community with their brothers and sisters. And, you know, many of them can take a regular bus to school, so it doesn't always even have to be sped transportation. I believe in the push-in method of special education as much as possible. I don't think students should be like singled out as being a special education student. In fact, when I go by a classroom that has a special education teacher in it, I hope that I can't tell which is the regular education teacher and the special education teacher. You know, and that's just, you know, I'm a huge believer in special education. Some of my favorite students sometimes are special education students, and some of them are in some of our sub-separate classes. But, you know, I really think that they cannot be in a silo. I mean, first of all, they don't learn. They don't get the same opportunities as regular education students if we do that. And it's just not fair. Nobody wants to be singled out as a special education student, you know, because we don't say, oh, regular education student. So I would really work on those push-in opportunities that students can remain in class. And, you know, if you have 3 special education students in a class and you have a teacher working with them, there are probably other students that don't have extremely strong skills as well, but they just did not test low enough to be in like a special group. So, use those opportunities to give students that maybe need an extra boost, the extra boost. So, I'm very much for trying not to show a big difference, and you take a look at Tier 1 and you take a look at Tier 2 and you take a look at Tier 3. We've tried in our IEPs to pull everybody out of the third tier of IEPs as much as we can and make every student feel like just a regular student in our school.
Thank you.
Thank you. Lessons learned from 2020 to 2022. So we are emerging from a very challenging set of circumstances, and our budget prospects remain in a state of flux. In the meantime, our parents and students have a difficult year due to the pandemic. What are some of the things you think about as you get ready to lead our district through the social and emotional needs of students and faculty?
This is a great question, and it's a really, really difficult question. We have first and second grade and third graders who either had no experience or just such an odd experience to starting to school. So, I think that our reteaching or our pre-teaching are going to continue to be important for the next few years. I also think that we cannot overlook mental health, social emotional issues, domestic violence, and many things that happened during the pandemic. I mean, the pandemic, as we know it, may be somewhat subdued, but the aftermath of the pandemic is going to be with us for a long time. I think that we're going to have to look at ways to support students. I have never in a long career seen as many dysregulated students that we had at the beginning of this year. It was overwhelming, I'm the person that actually gets involved with kids. I was helping wrangle elementary kids, and we had a student bite a teacher, and when she went to the doctor, the doctor told her it looked like a dog bite. And I've never seen that before, and I've taught in urban situations. And so, we have to come back to the mental health, to the social emotional piece of that. And I think in doing that, we also have to make sure that we are mindful of the social and emotional health of our teachers and our paraprofessionals, because teachers, even long-time old people like me, saw things that we've never seen before in public education. So I think that we have to talk about them. We have to be honest about them. That's why I say, we had a student that bit a teacher, and people are like, oh, almost everyone I know had some really difficult situations with students coming back. And we did some 45-day placements for students where, we would, put them in an environment out of our district where they could, become regulated and then come back. And I think you just have to keep looking at it. We had a number of teachers that went out on some FMLA, just really difficult, some things that people didn't think about. My partner's father died at the height of the pandemic, and we could barely have a funeral for him. And so, people didn't even get to grieve over things. So, it just made everything different. And we're going to have to be mindful of those growing up as we go forward.
Thank you. Number 6, working with municipal leaders in government. Oh, that's me. Can you give us examples of how you have worked with community leaders to build support for the public schools in previous positions?
Sure. In Palmer for the last, 6.5 years, when I first started, we had a town manager who had been there for a very long time. His goal was to save as much money as he could for the town, which I understand. I mean, everybody wants a rainy day fund. You have to have it. But tried very, very hard to build a relationship with him, and we did to a certain extent. I mean, when we would go, he would, he came up every year a little bit with the budget. But what I've tried to do with him, and now a few years ago we had a change in the town manager, and he's very interested in education because he understands the correlation of education in our town and people wanting to come there with kids, and so he really understands the whole picture. I think that meeting with those community leaders, and in particular like town managers, and Palmer has a town council, is making a relationship with them. And I said this in my initial interview, before you go with your hand out. Nobody wants to meet you when you're coming for more money. So, when I started in Palmer, I went to breakfast with a couple of town councilors, and we'd grab lunch and they would just come in and talk about our budget or talk about the money that we spend or what we felt like we needed. And so, when the new town manager started, I sat with him and I said, we need a 10-year plan. We really do, because there were a number of things in Palmer schools that had not had attention. Our football bleachers were falling apart. Our gym bleachers are falling apart. We have stair treads in the high school that kids were tripping on. And so, we just sat down and tried to do a plan so that we weren't coming for $2 million, but we were coming for like $200,000. And so we've been able to create a capital plan that, if I were to leave Palmer, hopefully will live longer after I am gone and continue to help. But, nothing replaces a relationship that you build with somebody. And I think that's important. The town manager and I, sometimes don't see eye to eye. We joke and say we act like brother and sister because, he and I have had some heated conversations, but they're not at each other. But the other thing in public, and I always say this, and I've said it since he started, even if I was mad at him that day, that we have a really good relationship with the town. We have never blamed them for anything, and I think that that's the big thing when working with municipal leaders is you can't do the blame game.
All right, number 7, regarding parent-related questions. Alan.
So visibility is something that is very important to our community. However, visibility with a connection is what our students need most. They can never have enough role models or people in their corner. Given the demands of being a superintendent, how would you balance the demands of your responsibility with the critical importance of your presence? Describe how you currently foster meaningful connections with students and share some ideas of how you might expand making meaningful connections.
One of the reasons that I like Pioneer Valley is it's a smaller school system. It's a little bit smaller than Palmer, but, and I've worked in huge systems. I was a teacher in South Carolina at a school that had 3,000 students. I was a teacher in Springfield School at a school that had 1,500, so I've worked in schools that were bigger than the districts that I've kind of chosen to work in. I really like the size of Palmer and Pioneer Valley because you can still have relationships with students, and I think that that's just really important. When I became an educator, it was because of students, and my dad was a principal, and I swore I would never be an administrator. And, I kept falling forward to where I am now. But for me, everything that we do is about making students successful, and if students see you at a game, they see you in a different light. If you have a conversation with a student and, if you looked at my office right now, I have 3 games in there. I have a Connect 4, I have Jenga, and I have a Trouble game. And my office is in the elementary school, so I'm out and about all the time, and I think that's big. Nobody's surprised if I walk in a classroom, but, I have a number of kids, especially in kindergarten, which is the wing my office is on, and they'll cry or they're having a really bad day, and I'll take them out of the classroom for like 10 minutes, which sometimes teachers say that's the best 10 minutes of their day. And, we go to my office, we'll play a game, and, we just kind of get them back on their feet and they go back in. And so now I even have a group of kids that, will try to find me, or they'll go, can you take me for a walk? And, so I think that visibility everywhere, so that, if I attend a high school game, and somebody's little brother's there, the elementary kids at Palmer call me the big boss, and sometimes they tell me to fire their principal. But even in our high school, I have a connection with kids. I have a conversation with them about where they're going to school or other things, and for me, that's that's fostering it. That's part of it. I'd hate for my job just to be the paperwork part or the evaluation part, because it really is about helping kids navigate.
Thank you. For student-centered questions, question number 8, Michelle.
What do you think are some of the competencies that our students need to master before they get to the high school and also before they graduate?
I think that we need to make sure that students are grade level appropriate. And they're not always going to be before they move up to the next grade, but we need to get them as close as they possibly can. So I think that, you know, in your schools. And when I was an elementary principal a million years ago, that's what my school did, was we sat down and we discussed the targets that we wanted for first grade. But we discussed them with the second grade teachers, because it always really bothered me when, like, you know, the third grade teachers would get the second grade teachers and go, they didn't learn anything. And I'd say, well, why are you like dissing on the second grade teachers? And they would be like, what? I'd say, well, if you're saying they didn't learn anything, then, you know, you're basically saying the second grade teachers didn't do their job. So I think that readiness, and I think learning what students need to go to high school starts, obviously, you know, you hope it starts with parents, but it doesn't always. But, you know, for kindergarten kids to go to first grade and not know their alphabet is that's not viable, you know. So we have to have some standard, or what does this child have to know? You know, before they go to high school, students really need to have mastered, and this sounds kind of simple, but, you know, their times table, some basic math skills, some ability to, you know, write a paragraph, to communicate effectively in writing, to read for comprehension, not just word recognition. You know, so many times, you know, we'll hear a, you know, elementary kid reading, and they're beautiful readers, but you go, what did you just read me? And they say, I don't know. You know, so that's where we have to dig a little deeper in all of these. But, you know, I think if students can go to high school and they have their basic math skills, they can do some fractions, they can do some percentages, and if they can do those before they graduate as well. You know, you hear the joke about, you know, glad I took that algebra test, the algebra class, and don't know how to change my tire. You know, there's a little bit of truth to that. You know, one thing that I was very impressed with your high school is you still offer some cooking. You still offer, you know, some STEM where kids actually get to learn something. You know, so I think that we really have to work together. I know in our high school this year, you know, my principal, I've tried to do this for the past few years, but I finally have the right administrators. You know, when seniors are out the last couple of weeks of school, our fifth graders are actually, our high school is 6 through 12. Our fifth graders are actually going to spend the last 3 weeks of their school in the high school. So they'll start to get the hang of it before next year.
All right, thank you. Number 9, regarding student retention. Raina.
What do you see as the foundational steps to improve the level of education district-wide to retain students within our district until they graduate?
Well, you have to have classes that students want to take, and you have to have teachers that make students want to come. You know, and I think that you have to talk to some people. You have to talk to parents. You know, as I take a look at this, you know, I would want to, you know, if I were offered this position in the start of the new school year, when teachers came back, I would try to take 7 to 10 minutes to really make an appointment and meet with either a group of teachers, like a team, or every teacher and paraprofessional that wanted to talk to me. You know, I don't know what your reasons are here of why people, you know, move on. You know, I know in Palmer that many of our students that, you know, it's not that we don't retain students. We have a large number of students who school choice from first grade and never come back, you know. So that's our biggest ones. And then sometimes we have the disgruntled parents. You know, Palmer's the kind of town that if your family's lived there for 100 years, you're probably going to go to Palmer schools and graduate. But, you know, you start seeing, you know, the demographics change, some new people coming to town, and it does create, you know, a different approach to education. But I think that if you can get excitement about coming to school, you have some really neat opportunities. You know, I was going through like your garden and, you know, your composting, and, you know, those are some things that are going to make kids excited about coming to school. But, you know, I think also is you know, getting parents in to visit your schools. You know, before kids come to kindergarten, we have a night where, you know, they come and meet the teachers. Pre-K, the same thing. We do it for, you know, grades 1 through 5. You know, even if your kids have gone there forever, you can still come in and go on a tour with your kids. We're doing that at our high school as well. So, you know, we're just really trying to make the effort to make the connection between the community and the town, and we really celebrate successes. So for every student that gets John and Abigail, we bring them to school committee and we give them a medal or a pen or something, so that, you know, we give them something that they can see or they can feel. We make a lot of t-shirts. You know, we just try to do things that recognize students, and when we want parents to want their kids to go there so that their kids can be recognized in really positive ways.
Thank you. And then number 10, commitment to all students. That's Robin.
As an educational leader, how would you ensure that our commitment to educating and supporting the needs of all students and families is done in a way that provides the best opportunities for each and every student?
You know, again, I go back to every student, and the thing I love about public education is it affords every student, no matter, you know, what your parents' level of income is, it provides every student, you know, a relatively equal level of opportunity. I say relatively because, you know, you probably look at your children and they knew that they were going to go to college, or they knew they were going to have your support forever. But we have students who don't have that. So we really have to help students navigate, you know, the world, to help them navigate. And, you know, I say this all the time. You know, when I taught at the High School of Commerce, you know, I can just tell you in my way and what I hope people do. I had a young man who was Puerto Rican, and he was valedictorian of the High School of Commerce, and he got a full academic scholarship to Amherst College. And his mother did not want him to go because she wanted him to go to Stick because it was close to where they lived. And he went to Amherst College, and I literally took him every fall and picked him up every spring. And right now he is doing his principal internship at Palmer High School, and he's in the Harvard PhD program for educators. You know, and that's sort of like my commitment, and I want educators to have that commitment and to see it through. You know, I think that being a good teacher is not being a good teacher 1 year, but it's like sort of being available, you know, and that young man just needed navigating. I mean, I didn't do anything to make him smart. I told him to apply to Amherst College because they didn't have a lot of him, and I thought they needed him. You know, and that's what I would tell kids, you know. So I think that our commitment to students is to help every student navigate, and every student has a different roadmap. And, you know, I just think that we have to have those conversations. You know, I think you have to have counselors who don't tell kids you're never going to get in there. You know, and I think that that's a real drawback, you know, sometimes. And I'm not saying it happens here, but I've seen it happen. So, you know, for me, those are the opportunities that we provide students, a chance that, you know, if they are taking MCAS, while you may not be crazy about it, it's a measure in Massachusetts, that they have the skills to take it, that they understand the directions. Those are tough. You know, sometimes students will know the answer to a question, but they can't navigate through the directions. So, you know, how do we make students successful? It's what that child needs. You know, and there are a lot of kids, you know, quite frankly, when I taught AP, it's like, get out of their way, you know. You know, don't hinder them, you know, like let them go. If they already know how to do this, don't say, okay, you're going to read the Great Gatsby for the 100th time. It's like, you know, let's pick something else. So, you know, I think, again, it's just that mindfulness.
Thank you. All right. So in closing here, is there anything that you would like to share that didn't come out in this interview that you would like us to know?
You know, I would just like to say that, again, you know, I intentionally applied here, and, you know, I had a great experience when Alan and Nathan and Stephanie came to Palmer. I just want to just say this, that all of my administrators and my teachers thought that they were incredibly kind, they were incredibly thoughtful, and I think that says a great deal about what you're trying to do in this search. You know, they weren't on a fact-finding mission that made anybody feel they were looking to, you know, dig up, you know, Jimmy Hoffa. And so, you know, that was really helpful. You know, and I think today, as I toured with Melissa and with Nathan, you know, I really enjoyed it. You know, I really felt like, you know, I had an opportunity to, you know, shake some hands and talk to people and, you know, really see the schools, you know, and I'd like to think, you know, your principals did a great job of giving me tours of your school. So, you know, I wouldn't apply somewhere where I didn't think that I would be a fit. And I feel like this is a place that I could be a fit. And I feel like I have some expertise in areas that, you know, could help you move forward as a district. And, you know, I'm always a student. There's still a lot of things that I could learn. And that excites me too, of, you know, going somewhere and still having an opportunity to learn and, you know, just to do things better. So, and again, I really appreciate the opportunity. You know, when I was called for an interview, I was very excited. It was a little crazy because Somehow it was only my home phone, so I'd like to thank you for sticking with trying to find me. And, I was excited during my interview. Everyone on the interview committee was just, really intense in a really positive way, like intense about what you were doing, but not intense to make somebody feel uncomfortable. So I really appreciate the opportunity.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all very much. It was really nice to meet you. Thank you for a
Nice to
great
meet
day.
you too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll take a few minutes here to debrief, and I believe Alan is still passing out, so we have our site visit observations. So if you wanted to, so this site visit had Nathan, Stephanie, and Alan. I want to thank all three of you for doing these site visits.
Yeah, so just to make this clear, so we did not have an opportunity to put the summary together. So when you do your deliberations, I think Stephanie will speak to some of the things that she took away, and Nathan will be doing the same. But these are some common things I think that just stood out, and that I think we all observed them. So again, for the public, these are the things that Stephanie, Nathan, and I observed either in our conversations with her, which were not as lengthy, obviously, because we had a limited time. We started our day at 11:30, and we didn't leave there until after 2:30. So it was a long visit. And during this visit, she had arranged for us to meet with high school, middle school, and elementary staff. As a matter of fact, we had some fourth graders that talked with us, and they all knew who she was as we walked through the school. So that was really enjoyable. So the expertise in regional school district finances, she's spent a lot of time on that. Still acknowledges a long way to go, but she seems to be a lifelong learner in wanting to dig into that, which she had said. I don't remember if she said it here or in the other room. Problem-solving skills, site visit planning, district planning, inspiring and promoting individuals within developing administrative skills. There are a number of people that worked in the district at other positions, and she would bring them up. I can't remember if she said it was a para, but someone who she saw with leadership skills helped to actually get certified through the Massachusetts Business Association. So, and is now, their business administrator. She did the same for IT. She actually took a first grade teacher that she saw tremendous potential in, and helped her to get training, moved her, I think it was, into an assistant principal position at the high school level, and then eventually appointed her as the acting principal, from first grade teacher to the acting principal of a high school, and then from there supported her, and then talked to the staff about, I'm thinking of appointing her as the principal, and she got tremendous support from the staff. So I use that as an example of she really can inspire people to go beyond what they thought and didn't even see as their potential. The building tour went remarkably well. Knowledge of curriculum, contributions to the district. She's task-oriented, knowledge of responsibilities, dedicated to the position, high work ethics, communication with staff, administrators, and teachers, organizational skills, aware of the implementation of strategic plan, uses social media, And we had an opportunity to visit or talk with middle school, elementary, and high school students. I'm going to do the ones that we checked in common: confidence, cooperative, enthusiastic, flexible, honest, innovative, insightful, knowledgeable. There's leadership, motivation, respectful, organized thoughts and speaking, thinks well on her feet, trustworthy, deals fairly with people. And then the other takeaways that I had observed were a use of a variety of modalities to communicate with stakeholders, phone system communication, emails. I think it was like a Connect Ed thing where we could get information out to the staff. We didn't get into the particulars, but they referred to it as the phone communication system. Meets weekly with the administrative team, invites participants into the decision-making process, makes informed decisions and is willing to stand by them, is visible in the school and the community. When a principal, assistant principal is out, she'll go to the school and sort of fill in and see what she can do to help out and have a presence in the school. Is a wonderful mentor for aspiring school leaders. I gave an example. Brings out the best in people, provides ongoing legal updates, is a strong supporter of mental health, works with principals to set high standards for staff, works closely with town administrator, and has a solid relationship with their administrator. Used to be a business administrator in a regional school district, so she was able to also get a lot of information and learn through her experiences with him. Very respectful with others, has saved the regional district many dollars in special education, transportation, and programs while gaining the support of parents in these decisions. Made many contributions to the smooth transition of the middle school closing and moving into another building. Involved all stakeholders in a very methodological process. Becoming more knowledgeable in the business end of a regional school district, the town administrator, I mentioned that, works hand in hand with their new business administrator, who she supported in becoming a certified school administrator. Promotional educational leader, sees potential in people. Knowledgeable special education director. Students come first and foremost, dedicated, honest, and she makes connections with people and organizations that benefit the district. So I think, I don't know if Stephanie wants to add to that right now, or Nathan, or do you want to do that later on when we deliberate?
I mean, we have a little bit of time.
Yeah.
She definitely had a very well-planned site visit. It was hard because we didn't have enough time. So there was times where we only had a few minutes to talk to different people, and we only did see a limited tour of the building. But, you know, very thoughtful on who we spoke with. Everybody spoke very highly of her. They talked about how she does, you know, really stress the importance of seeing potential in people and promoting them if they, you know, are in the sense of that they should be, you know, promoted. It was nice to be able to talk to the students. We had elementary, middle school, and high school, so it was nice to see that and see what visibility meant to them, what superintendent means to them, how they got selected to be the kids that talked to us. But no, overall it was a very good site visit. I was very impressed with the planning process of it.
Yeah, I would agree. It was especially.
Nathan, if you could just bring your mic closer.
Yeah, I would agree. It was especially nice to, we spoke with a group of 3 fourth graders, and then 2 seniors, I believe a 10th grader and an 8th grader, and a sixth grader
Mm-hmm.
in a separate meeting. Yeah, and everyone in that district seemed like they were really engaged. And I know those kids were, you know, maybe not typical of the district, but they knew who the superintendent was, could speak to circumstances where they had worked with her, and that when she had helped them out.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay. Yes, and I don't see Joanne. Yes, sure.
She's hiding.
Oh, there she is. We're running a little ahead of schedule, which is so unusual for us. All right, don't jinx it, yeah. So we're just gonna take a brief
We had that
break. We'll
45-second
just,
thing ready to go. See, if we didn't have the 45-second, we wouldn't have. Oh, God.
Julie,
yes.
I'm really proud of Jonathan.
Oh, thank
He's
you.
been a great leader, and he made Western Mass.
He made Western Mass. He was so,
Yeah.
so elated.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks.
Well,
Yeah,
thank you. He's a great kid.
yeah, thanks.
He stepped up. Last spring, I was projecting who's going to be a captain, who's going to be, and I was going back and forth with it, but no. The maturity level this year is really,
Yep, he has come into his own. I think he could get, he's so extroverted that he can easily have fun and and that can sometimes lend to a lack of focus. So, but I do see a lot of that growth as well, where he's still able to have fun, but also stay on task and kind of gather.
no, he's taking it very seriously.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I saw him on the site visit today, and I wanted to, again, take a selfie.
right, yeah.
And I'd be like,
He's very,
I'm in here with your son.
Yeah.
Did Northfield approve the 6% increase in pay for all their town employees last night?
yes, the omnibus,
What?
passed. Yeah,
Oh,
yep.
That's not good.
So, yep, that passed, the whole budget passed at both Northfield and Warwick.
I knew that,
Yeah.
but I was wanting to focus more on
Yeah.
Northfield and their employees'
Mm-hmm.
percentage raise.
You know, we're at with Warwick, right?
Well, yes. No. Town employees. Zero.
That's not where we want to be. Fortunately, where we are.
Who's Northfield? That's what Bernardston has on there. I don't know. I wish I knew.
Make some dinner real quick.
Seriously, I am I need coffee, I need food, I need.
I have a
I'm not that into it. No, I just wanted you to know that there was no so all of this is still open session.
Oh, okay.
It's still recording and the mics are still on. That's okay. I'm just letting you guys know.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. I'm just gonna make my dinner.
Just for whatever reason. Yeah. Saying you'll take a break is different than everyone voting to take a break if your point business is not being discussed.
Gotcha.
So that's why everything is still live.
That's fine.
You mean you don't put a thing up and say committee in break and you put it up on the screen?
You have to vote to do that.
Oh,
Otherwise, it's me making sure things are what's recorded and whatnot too.
that makes sense.
Love your pay grade.
Good thing you weren't picking your nose.
They screwed mine up. Pioneer did.
Yeah.
2-year. According to the selectmen, it's Pioneer. So my term was only 2 years, for whatever reason. I know. I don't know. I mean, if the whoever is responsible for screwing up wants to go out and get my signature, so.
That's both. I was appointed.
I'm gonna just total mine up quickly so that, I can use this.
You and him, correct.
When we go and try to set,
Correct. It was a mistake for Bernardston, and it looks like there's another
we can do ranking.
town that's in the same boat. We were just talking about that at the district agreement meeting, so that will be coming up. It's to be determined. Well, it's also term limits too. Term limits also.
I'm just saying,
Right.
the way it stands, people can run stuff.
I would say policy and district agreement conflict. Correct. Yes, we did. Yes, we did.
Oh, boy.
Right? I have lots of questions about. Right, right.
That's 39, 36. Pretty close. Well, just so that you get a sense of the vote. I didn't realize it was gonna be, yeah, that's pretty good. Pardon? Well, I've had so much to compare to. Done this a few hundred times. Except at, my superintendent, so we don't want to spend time, the 10,000, find us somebody. So I interviewed people, I got the 3 chairs together, interviewed the 3 chairs, because there were 3 different committees. And then I brought a person to the committee, recommended them.
I thought it, we thought it was a
Hired
3-year.
was Mike Honey, who'd been there for a long
For
time.
life,
Yeah, I thought, well, I mean, I'm done anyway. I have made it very clear on
you
this.
were appointed.
I was voted in by 3 write-ins.
But it's just been 1 year for you, hasn't it?
It's been 2 years, and I am gonna resign in June 1st. I'm gonna resign June 1st.
You resign, you're not gonna fill it, staying until elections?
No,
Did you have 1 year left?
I was gonna be done in November.
Oh, okay. Yeah, got it. You just.
Gonna give somebody.
So I'm getting all kinds of lovely messages saying that
Mics
folks are
are still-
tuning in from home and the
Yes.
mics are live, so everyone,
Yes.
Yes.
everyone was aware.
Hello, everybody.
Right.
I said.
And they can hear everything, I
Right.
tell you, because I did that once remotely from
Yeah.
home, and I'm like, wow.
Right, yes. So we'll begin in just another couple of minutes.
If anyone's listening, they can bring me a coffee.
Bring us pizza.
Tell Ron and Antonia, tell Clayton it's for the wonderful school committee. But Jeannie Milton said thank you.
How am I missing?
You're not gonna believe what I got.
Finish me. That's fun.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah,
That is right. Great minds, right? What color are we on next? Blue? Where's my blue? Did you take my blue?
No, I only have one.
I have yellow.
Oh, it's on the back of your journal.
That's it.
This one? Oh, thank you.
Mine too.
I can't.
I said, I want to
Thank
do a
you.
fundraiser to get better chairs. These chairs are brutal. Really, really brutal.
Yeah, I was saying if I didn't have rods in my spine, I wouldn't be standing
That's
up
good. I'd
right
say
now.
you're a very good.
I sometimes in meetings I stand just because it's yeah. All right. So is everyone back? I think that we can. Tyler, I believe we're ready to begin again. All right.
Don't want to say anything now. I'll just put some more lipstick on.
Did you have your snack?
I had my banana. I'm sorry I didn't bring enough for everybody.
I did say to Melissa, I'm like, are we gonna have any food? Pizza would have been a great idea. Nice.
Beautiful in there.
Yeah, Melissa did a really good job as the moderator. Excellent job.
Thank you, Melissa.
It's a long day for her, though. Be here all day.
It was good. It was good.
Hi. Hello there.
Ooh.
So welcome, Cynthia. We have Cynthia Kennedy here. And I don't think you've had the opportunity to meet all of us as school committee members. So we'll just go around the table here and introduce ourselves.
Fantastic, thank you.
Hi, welcome back.
Oh, must be me. Jim Bell, Bernardston.
Nice to meet you.
Jeannie Milton, Bernardston, welcome.
Thank you.
Stephanie Winslow, Northfield.
Hi, Stephanie.
Julie Burke, Northfield.
Hi, Julie.
Alan Genovese Warwick, welcome back.
Thank you.
Michelle Druso Leiden, nice to see you again.
Thank you, Michelle.
Welcome, Raina Dasty from Northfield.
Thank you.
Robin Knight from Leiden.
Great. Nice to meet all of you. Thank you.
And then on Zoom here,
Oh, yes.
Yeah, Karen O'Neill, also from Leiden, but not right now.
Hi, Karen. Nice to meet you.
Hi, I'm David Young, and I'm in Warwick.
Hi, David. Nice to meet you.
great. So what we're going to do here is you're going to have 10 questions. You'll get 3 minutes to answer each question. Stephanie has made a lovely sign here to warn you when there's 45 seconds remaining. And we will begin here with Melissa, and she will ask a question regarding the superintendent's role in improving outcomes. And the questions are there in front of you as well.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. So if student success is a function and part of strong leadership, best teaching practices, a comprehensive curriculum, and well-maintained safe facilities, how will you, as our superintendent, address these issues to promote student learning?
Great question, thank you. So I think that it is important I think you've hit on so many of the very pertinent and important aspects of student success, both academic success, social emotional success, behavioral success, and of course, citizenship in the school community as a whole. And so a superintendent's role, I think any leadership role, is to support folks in the organization to be able to do their job to the best of their ability. And so while there is obviously some evaluation and supervision and all of those things, I think a very important aspect of leadership is being able to work with the principals to listen to what they need, to respond to what they need, to be able to run their schools effectively and efficiently. Because after all, they are responsible for working with teachers and making sure that students' needs are met on a day-to-day basis. A superintendent is also responsible for making sure that students' needs are met on a day-to-day basis through resource allocation, both on the whole and as problems come up. So comprehensive curriculum, that is something that is always evolving, making sure that I, as an educational leader, as well as the folks that are in the Pioneer Valley Regional School District as employees, are always on a path of improving through professional development, reflective practices, and all of those pieces that are part of being an effective educator. And well-maintained safe facilities, of course. If we have ceiling tiles falling down, or we have students that don't feel like they are in safe and supportive classrooms, then they aren't going to be able to focus on learning. So that is obviously a very important piece of that as well. As far as curriculum, I'm going to go back to that. I want to stress that I think that curriculum, in addition to strong instructional skills, are part and parcel to student success, making sure that students are having units of instruction presented to them that are based on the Massachusetts standards and that are differentiated in both modes of representation, means of representation, and also different ways that students can demonstrate their learning. So all of those things are important. I sort of am lumping instruction in with curriculum, but I think that a comprehensive curriculum is only as good as those folks that are delivering the instruction.
Thank you.
I was watching for the sign.
I know.
All right.
Question number 2 regarding communication. Jim.
What method will you use to keep yourself, the school committee, and other stakeholders current on important community and school district-related matters? How would you go about establishing good relationships in the school community and strong public relationships in our towns?
I think that strong relationships overall is a really important aspect of any leadership role, and I've talked a lot about that. I talked about that earlier today, and I talked about that in my first interview, that I really feel that this is a strength of mine. Making connections with people that are working in our schools, with our students, with our families, and with community members are all very important for a successful school district. And so establishing good relationships, I think really taking the time to get to know the folks that are part of the school community, whether they be families or whether they are employees, is very, very important. I think that this is something that I pride myself on. I really feel that every person that's employed by a school district has an important role to play, and in fact, I was talking a little bit, and I'm sorry, his name escapes me, Mr. Streeter at one of the elementary schools, the Bernardston Elementary School this morning, and talking about how he has been involved in different ways. And so that's really important. And I think that if someone is not felt like they are being seen, then they're not likely to go above and beyond in their job and do those extra things. And so I was really impressed by some of the things that he was talking to us about. As far as staying current on important things, I think it is very important to always be present in school committee meetings. I've watched some of your prior school committee meetings, the last few, and also being visible in our schools, out on the sports fields, at games, in attendance at plays and concerts and things like that, and all of those events that hopefully are going to be back and part of our school community fabric now that this pandemic hopefully is on its way out. And so I think that being visible and making those connections with families and having a listening ear. One last thing is that I'm really invested in having a superintendent's advisory council made up of students, parents, teachers, administrators, school committee members, community members. I think that that's really, I see that as a really important piece to getting to know all of the different groups and what's important to them and priorities. Thank you.
Thank you. Nathan will ask the next question regarding budget and finance. Remember your mic, Nathan.
If you could tell us about your experience building, implementing, and executing financial plans and budget priorities. What have those experiences taught you, and how will you use what you have learned to build an optimal budget?
So as I spoke a little bit in the community meeting earlier this afternoon, I really felt that this was an area that I needed to build up my skills a little more than a year ago. I did have a fair amount of good skills in this, but I really wanted to just get in and really learn the details of building a budget and implementing a budget from the regional standpoint and from the superintendent standpoint. And so that is something that I have specifically worked on as part of my own prioritizing with professional development and working with my current superintendent. And so we have built our budget. Our budget is about $10 million more than yours, but obviously has similar parts to it. And really understanding the income and the revenue sources and the expenditures as well as debt, and how those pieces all come together to build the budget. So putting those things together and executing that budget so that it is in alignment with our strategic objective, our strategic plan, sorry. And I think that the strategic planning piece is another one of my strengths that has been by virtue of my most recent experiences. And so really making sure that we are allocating resources, financial resources, and human resources in our budget to be in alignment with our strategic plan is really very important, because if you don't have a plan and you don't have priorities, then you're all over the place. And so it's really important to be focused on that. What have these experiences taught me? One thing that we did last year when we started out to build the new strategic plan and including some budget issues was that we surveyed teachers and staff, we surveyed community members. We did open it up to secondary students, although we only got a little bit of response from them. And so I think that while not all of that information was usable, we did get some information, and we did learn what was important to our constituency. And that's really important. And the other piece is that it's really important that our constituents that we represent know that we're hearing them and we're listening to them and we're seeking their input. So So those are some things that are recent lessons about budget and finance.
Thank you. Fourth question from Jeannie will be regarding special education.
In looking to expand our inclusive practice across the district, how would you navigate those who view special education in a separate silo to general education? If special education services are seen at Tier 3, how do you determine the effectiveness and relationship between Tiers 1, 2, and 3 services?
So special education services are just that. All of our students are general education students. Some of them just receive special education services. And so with tiers, of course, all students receive Tier 1 or universal instruction. That is our core instruction. And some students require some secondary Tier 2 supports, perhaps extra time, a differentiated method of instruction, extra practice, perhaps they need a social emotional plan. And then Tier 3, to consider that special education is only Tier 3, I think, quite frankly, is a little short-sighted. I understand historically that might be how it was considered in the past, but all of our students are all of our students. And so it's really important that they have membership in each of our classrooms, and that they have services that help them to make effective progress. As far as changing some mindsets about that, I think professional development is the primary way to do that. This is something that we are working on in my current district, and I have quite a bit of experience with co-teaching and inclusive practices, and so it can be done, and no, it is not easy, but there needs to be trust, a mindset, and a how-to. And I think that teachers generally want to support students and want to do a good job. Sometimes they just need some extra tools to get them there.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, lessons learned from 2020 to 2022. We are emerging from a very challenging set of circumstances, and our budget prospects remain in a state of flux. In the meantime, our parents and students have had a difficult year due to the pandemic. What are some of the things you think about as you get ready to lead our district through the social and emotional needs of students and faculty?
That is certainly true.
All of the above.
All of the above. Check, check, check. Yes. So I think going back to a little bit about communication, I think it's really important to be a good listener, to be open, to be asking those questions, to perhaps be using some information gathering, such as an advisory council, maybe a focus group, maybe a survey, to have folks let us know what it is that they need. I can't presume to know what somebody else needs without asking them. And so there is a lot of emerging research saying that our students and our staff are facing this uphill battle of coming out of this pandemic and really need significant support, unlike anything that we've ever seen before. And so, for example, one thing that I did in my current district was I was able to acquire 2 grants that allowed us to put in some extra social emotional professional development, some short-term staff in the form of extra counselors, and we actually just put in, it's been very successful so far in our middle school, put in a couple of well, they're basically hall monitors, but they're going through and making connections with students, saying hello, checking hall passes, making sure kids are not just wandering around, or if they are, if they need something, getting them to those places. And so those are some of the things. And as far as faculty, I think that many of our teachers and staff are really tired, and we really need to acknowledge that. Of course, when you're going into a contract and teachers and staff want pay raises and things like that, but I don't think that those are the only things that they are looking for as far as job satisfaction. And so really listening, and really understanding what the needs are moving forward and being responsive as we can to ask people what they need and what they want and give it to them to the best of our ability.
Thank you. Number 6 here, working with municipal leaders and government. Can you give us examples of how you have worked with community leaders to build support for the public schools in previous positions?
Sure. So most recently, about a year ago, so I guess not that recently, but the one that comes to mind is that when we were building our strategic plan, that was initiated last summer. I led the it was the facilities section of the groups, and so Mr. Sean Sahowski, who is the town manager of Athol, sat in on that group, and we really talked about the state of the physical plants and the campuses of our schools. And we, as a matter of fact, have an athletic field project going on now that we are working with the town so that it's a community sharing the cost and the benefit. And so that's one way. I have also, in a previous job, had experience working with both city councilors and some other folks from the electric. It was a fiber optics project where they were digging up and replacing the sewers and putting fiber optics in. And so, for example, I coordinated community meetings at my school because my school was on a main thoroughfare, and the town councilor had his meetings. I want to say it was more than once a month. I think in the thick of it, it was a couple of times a month. And then we also had some other folks come in and speak to the community groups. And so I helped out with coordinating those events. And so another one is that in Royalston, where I was the principal, we had very slow to no internet. And so one thing that I did was work with our technology director, and he had been part of a group, and I was helping him to get some data and other information, and we eventually were able to connect to the police department that had high-speed internet. So now the school that had the slowest internet has the highest internet in the district, and boy, are those teachers happy. So different ways, but I think it's really important to be collaborative and to understand that all of the departments work together in order to make our schools all that they can be.
Great. Question 7, parent-related questions. Alan?
Thank you. Visibility is something that is very important to our community. However, visibility with a connection is what our students need most. They can never have enough role models or people in their corner. Given the demands of being superintendent, how would you balance the demands of your responsibilities with the critical importance of your presence? Describe how you currently foster meaningful connections with students and share some ideas on how you might expand making meaningful connections.
Great question. I absolutely agree. I think that, as I mentioned previously, being part of school events, plays, and concerts, and at athletic events is one way to make connections with parents and families and students. I think being in classrooms, walking with principals, and walking with just walking through schools and seeing what's going on, and having students know me and getting to know the students and the teachers is another very, very important part of being a superintendent. I'm not a person who can sit in my office behind a closed door. I have way too much energy for that. And I like to be in schools. Schools are my comfortable, happy place, if you will. And so that's really important. I think that I agree. And I think one of the reasons that I'm drawn to being a superintendent at this point in time is that I think, without going into too much detail, there's an awful lot on the news about our educational leaders, and I think those of us that have a conscientious and ethical mindset, that we are held to a higher standard, if now is the time to step up, because we do need those leaders in education at this point in time and moving forward. And so fostering meaningful connections, I am in classrooms currently, my job requires me to be overseeing teachers who are interventionists in multiple schools. And so I am in those classrooms. I will sit down at the table and see what the kids are doing and see what the teachers are teaching. I meet with them 3 times a month after school. And so I am aware of what students are doing. As far as making meaningful connections moving forward, I think that being visible, being a cheerleader for our schools, and really being open. I'm kind of the same person on the day that you meet me as maybe 500 days from now. I don't, I'm very open, and I'm willing to talk to anybody. And so I'm happy to have people approach me. I hope that I'm approachable. I try to put that out there. And I'm always happy to listen and help people, families or students, solve problems. And so, one way I do that right now is I go down to our middle school lunchroom and talk to kids, and there's never enough staff staffing the lunchroom. So that's one way I connect.
Thank you. Student-centered questions. Michelle will ask this question.
What do you think are some of the competencies that our students need to master before they get to the high school and also before they graduate?
So a portrait of any student, I think we want a student that is academically curious, that is a motivated learner, that is a good citizen, someone who has, as they approach high school and then through high school and after, someone who has a plan for what they plan to do in high school and how that will prepare them for after graduation. They don't necessarily have to have that plan forever and ever, but just I would like to see kids graduate with a plan. I think that students, I really like that our curricula has a lot of social emotional aspects to it these days, and because I think that there's not enough compassion in the world. And so I think teaching students in our classrooms how to be compassionate, respectful, and responsible human beings is part and parcel of our responsibility as educators. So competencies, if we're going academic, I would say that one of the things that is not addressed anywhere enough is writing. And certainly with our students having been part of remote learning for so long, that has really become a major gap. I think that they need to be critical thinkers. They need to be able to read and appreciate and critique a wide range of genres. And understand the world, right? Mm. And science. Sorry, forgot about science. I love science. That's part of understanding the world, science. Yes, definitely.
All right. Question number 9 regarding student retention. Raina.
What do you see as the foundational steps to improve the level of education district-wide to retain students within our district until they graduate?
Sure. So I think that things are changing so rapidly that it is really hard, even without the pandemic, it's really hard for us to keep up because the amount of information and, for example, we've all heard that maxim that many of the jobs that our students have, our students that are in high school or even in younger grades, many of the jobs that they will have haven't even been invented yet. So how in the world do we possibly prepare them for that? And I think that a little bit of what I said in my last answer really applies to that. But within our schools, I think being really responsive to what students are looking for and what families are looking for. For example, the advisory council that I mentioned, I think that that's really important to know what is being sought now and what are our long-range priorities as we're moving. I also think that this is a great way for principals to impact their school community with leadership skills as they lead these sorts of questions and information gathering and responses with their parent advisory councils or school improvement councils, whichever you want to call it. And so listening to the community, I know that Mr. Swartz we had a very brief conversation the other day about some ideas, and we were going back and forth about that. For example, I think that it's really important for students to have an opportunity to learn vocational skills if they're so inclined. One of the things that I'm working on through my current position is that's brand new, is that the high school principal, the Athol High School principal, and I have been working with a committee that includes folks from Mount Wachusett Community College and Fitchburg State to create pathways. I believe I talked about this a little bit in my first interview, and one of the pathways is an early college where it would be a dual enrollment, and we have secured grant funding through Mount Wachusett for our students to take up to 12 credits before they graduate tuition free. And so we also are creating some business partnerships. For example, we have students that are working in a CNC machining externship with Starrett Tool Manufacturing. And so we're creating internships and externships. And I think that those sorts of things, having that wide variety is really very appealing. And that's what both families and students are looking for from high schools today.
Thank you. Number 10, commitment to all students. Robin?
As our educational leader, how would you ensure that our commitment to educating and supporting the needs of all students and families is done in a way that provides the best opportunities for each and every student?
So I like data. I'm an educator, I'm a researcher, I like data. But beyond data, we need to see that behind every point of data is a human being. And so, so those two things really need to work closely together. We can look at data in the aggregate, or we can break it down into different groups and see how we're doing and where we might need to reinforce our curriculum, where we might need to, for example, take a look at instructional practices, or perhaps both. And that's one way to look at it. But also having those systems and structures in place so that we are making sure that we are meeting the needs of every student. I spoke a little bit earlier this afternoon about revamping our child study team process in my current district, which is essentially a response to intervention process. And so in that way, anybody can refer a student who is struggling to that team, and we work on interventions and we track it and make sure that the interventions are put in place and the resources are there. Beyond that, we also want to make sure that students who are working above grade level have what they need to be really motivated and to be getting what they want out of their educational experience here at Pioneer Valley Regional. And so it's really important to be part of the process, to be visible, to be a good listener, to be looking at the data, and to be really making sure that those systems and structures are in place to support the folks, the teachers and the principals, and the service providers to be able to do their job. And lastly, I think that when a family member comes forward and says, my child needs X and they're not getting it, it's really important to be open to listening to that and to be working together to find a solution. I truly believe, I told my eldest son this today, every problem is an opportunity for a new beginning, which is a little cliche. However, when you have a problem, it is an opportunity to work together to figure out something new. And so, I think that is certainly multifaceted, but supporting folks to be able to do their jobs is one way, and being open to listening and working together is another.
Great, thank you. So, in conclusion, is there anything you would like to share that didn't come out in this interview that you would like us to know?
I guess in closing, I just would like to say thank you so much. It's been really a very lovely process to get to know so many folks here in this district. Everybody has been so warm and so welcoming and really just so kind and nice. And so it was really wonderful to be able to walk through the schools and learn a little bit more about how things work on a day-to-day basis. And I really appreciated that opportunity. Education really is my passion. I was that kid who had a blackboard in my bedroom when I was a little girl and always knew I was going to be a teacher. And so I really do have a passion that I'm lucky that even after all this time is still very bright within me, that I feel that education is really important to me. And I'm really happy that I'm so lucky to be able to do this for my job. One thing that I thought of after I left this afternoon, it has come up multiple times about sorry. There I go with my hands again. About the land that this building is on, and I think that is such a compelling, exciting challenge. It's really very interesting, and so that. You have really sparked my interest about things that we could do with that, and so I think that is very unique and it's very exciting, and so I thank you very much. I feel that through all of this, I feel that this is a wonderful match for me, but you are the ultimate arbiters of that decision, and so I thank you so very much, and it has been wonderful to know all of you.
Great. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you.
Oh, thank you. All right.
Thank you. All right, so Alan, I think you have the site visit detail. Thank you. Thank you. So do you. All right. Did you want to give us a synopsis here?
Yeah, thank you. So I'll go through the attributes, and when I get down to the personal attributes, I will only be reading the ones that we had in common, and so there's a column that Nathan didn't have an opportunity to do, which he did on my copy. So if I mention this attribute, check it again, because that means that that's something that he noted as well. So I'll only read the ones that had 2 checks.
Okay.
So starting off, problem-solving skills, helping resource documents, site visit planning, inspiring staff, building tour, knowledge of curriculum, task-oriented, knowledge of responsibilities, dedicated to the position, work ethics, aware and implementation of strategic plan, use of social media, networking, and marketing. We had a tour of the elementary and middle school, and then visibility in the schools. And then the personal attributes were confidence, enthusiastic, innovative, knowledgeable, leadership, organized thoughts and speaking, thinks quickly and soundly on her feet. All right, thank you. And then, finally, and then I'll ask Nathan to comment some more. Here are some of the takeaways. Forms great relationships. Spoke with 9-year school committee chair, who talked about she presents often to the school committee, very clear, exceptional presentations, excellent presenter. Conducted informational sessions with parents during the pandemic, redesigned the website, stays connected with all stakeholders through a variety of modalities, extremely flexible. Her focus is always on students and uses data to guide instruction, knows what good, teaching looks like and promotes it. Excellent listener and thinks things through, getting ideas before moving forward with a decision. Works with staff on identifying power standards. Described as a leader with dignity. Familiar with PLCs, DUFOR and others, RTB, Research for Better Teaching, National Seed Project. Licensed in special education as a special education director. Understands regional school districts. Strong team leader, advocate for providing resources for instruction. Thrives on collaboration, is constantly expanding her knowledge, learning the in and outs of a regional school finance process and procedures, seeks high standards, uses a coaching model to help grow people professionally, well prepared for meetings, is willing to have difficult conversations, helps to mentor paraprofessionals, giving them the tools to succeed. She started a training program because they would come in, be hired, and felt that they weren't getting any support. So she saw that void and started a mentoring program. Involved bi-monthly meetings and common planning time, works closely with intervention specialists in supporting student learning, helps to implement the district strategic plan and contributed to its development, has a respected role in the district, taking on many responsibilities. Title I grant coordinator, involved with pathways for high school students, and works closely with the superintendent. People noted she has the skills and knowledge to be superintendent. She is well equipped and ready. So those were the comments. Nathan?
Yeah, that pretty much encapsulates, I think, what I would say.
Yep. Yeah, if I could just overall comment, we are very fortunate that we really have 3 outstanding candidates that they are finalists in other districts, so that speaks to their skills and talents and knowledge. And so I'm looking forward to this deliberation because we have a tough decision ahead of us.
First of all, I just wanted to give the opportunity for citizens' comments, if there was no further discussion regarding Ms. Kennedy. All right. So are there any citizens or members of the public who would like to comment this evening?
Point of order. I did mention multiple times today at the public forum that citizens' comments would be starting at 8.
Okay.
And then to 8:30. And so if people wanted to be present for that, if they were going home and coming back. So I don't know if anyone was planning on it, but I want to be mindful of that.
Absolutely. So I think what we can do is anyone that's here that would like to speak can have the opportunity to speak now. And then if anyone else comes, we could give them the chance.
Yeah,
if
I just want to
everyone's
make
okay with
sure that.
No, thank you. I appreciate
I
that.
made that clear, yeah.
spit my gum out.
So if you could just please state your name.
I'm Ashley Fogel. I'm a kindergarten teacher at Northfield. I'm here speaking in support of Interim Superintendent Patricia Kinsella. I did send a letter to the school committee, so I'm just actually going to highlight a few points now to be brief. I met Patricia during the opening day activities at Northfield Elementary School in the fall of 2021. I remember that she stood in the gym as we sat in an enormous circle with our folding chairs 3 feet apart. And she thanked us all for being teachers and leaders and working together for our students during the COVID pandemic challenges. She quickly established open dialogue and encouraged us to email or call her with any questions, concerns, or suggestions. She was authentic, and I immediately appreciated her clear thinking and open, transparent communication. I've worked at Northfield Elementary School for 20 years. During this time, there have been several superintendents. I can remember speaking to each of them once, maybe twice, in the course of their time. I cannot recall one time that a superintendent entered my classroom, except maybe in passing with the building principal on the first day. Patricia has been in my classroom several times this year. During the first few days of school, we stood in the block area and had a conversation about the importance of blocks and dramatic play in early childhood classroom environments. Once, when I was absent for a grad course, she came in and sang songs with kindergartners. The children told me all about Ms. Patricia when I returned. Another time, she came in during morning meeting. We were playing a charade game called Broomstick. She stayed for the whole game. And when it was over, she wrote it on her Twitter feed, so that was super cool. In between these classroom visits, I've seen her in passing at occasional meetings. Every time she greets me by name, she asks me a question about teaching, about a grad course that I'm taking. She's really interested and takes the time to get to know people just beyond the scope of their roles. She holds office hours at NES Library on Thursday morning. She's available for chatting, students, faculty, staff. She'll walk through the buildings. She sends out that district newsletter every week, which is very clear and gives a lot of relevant information. I definitely read that. It's good for teachers as well as families. She often seeks input from staff and faculty. Never before can I recall a superintendent routinely asking for input about larger district policies, initiatives, or related events. Never before can I recall a superintendent intentionally and transparently sharing current district issues or challenges. She truly is a collaborative leader and a problem solver. She values relationships with administrators, teachers, staff, and students. She genuinely asks and engages in dialogue about our interests, our teaching strategies, our strengths, and our challenges. She's a dedicated leader. She cares deeply for our schools and for our district community, as is very evident even in this short time that she's been here. I would look forward to working with her in the coming years, and I hope that she's given this well-deserved opportunity to continue serving as the permanent superintendent in our district. So thanks for listening.
Great. Thank you, Ashley. All right, is there anyone else? Yes, please come up.
Hello, my name is Bob Perlman. I've been in Northfield probably 35 years. I was manager of rehab for about 15 years at the hospital, and I taught at Turners Falls High School for 20 years. Mm-hmm. I've been where you are, not school committee, but in, committees for hiring so many principals and superintendents, and it's a really, really tough job. Whoever you pick changes their life. Whoever you don't pick changes their life as well. But I think the key is having a fit. And I guess I worked with Pat. She was my principal for a couple of years. And
which Pat? We have several.
We have two.
We have two Pat.
Pat Gardner.
Oh, thank you,
Yeah.
because we have Patricia Kinsella too.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you,
Oh, that's
Bob.
okay.
So
No,
I
was
guess I want to speak in her behalf. I saw her before today, maybe 6 years ago in Judy's restaurant. I bumped into her, so it's not like we're buddies or pals. But when I was reading the recorder and saw that she was one of the candidates, I took an interest, and I think I surprised her by showing
Yes,
up here today.
you did.
She has a lot of experience, and I know when we hired superintendents over at Turner's, we got first-time superintendents and stuff like that, and we really needed somebody that had the experience, and when there was a problem, they've seen it before, and they're not learning. There's no learning curve. And so I think that, you know, when I saw all these candidates look good, but I do think you got to give extra thought to experience who can come in and handle the situation. What I really liked about Pat is she was very down to earth, and you knew how she felt. We didn't always agree on stuff, but I always knew where she was coming from, and she was upfront and honest. She was so involved with the students, and I think one of the things we had talked about was that she ran the weekly meetings, and when she left, we always had assistant principals, or the athletic director was running the meetings because nobody wanted to deal with the kids, but she was always there, and she went to every game, just about every game I was at, I saw her, and she'd go to field hockey games, she'd go to JV games, she'd sometimes even go to a game at another school. And even at the morning meeting, she would say, "Oh, did you see Jim's catch that he made? You know, or what about that? You know, our pitcher struck out 20 people. You know, whatever." And she really was interested in. At that time, I think teachers still had to pay to go to games, and she said, "No, I want teachers to go." And she wanted teachers to see the kids outside the classroom and go to plays, and it really makes a difference when you really see the kid outside the classroom. So she was a great principal, and she moved on to become a superintendent. And she brought us into the AP world. She got us into this grant. And so the kids that got 3 or better would actually get $500 or something. And the teachers got money for so many kids that did well, but we couldn't keep it because of the union. But we put it all into a big fund so we could buy microscopes and buy stuff. And as soon as she left, the next principal wasn't interested. And because the school had to put out, pay half of some of the stuff, and we went from having a whole bunch of AP classes down to just the bare minimum. So, and like I say, under her guidance, we were 40th in Massachusetts for schools. And that was based really on how many AP classes and the MCAS scores and stuff like that. So I'd be happy to answer any questions either if you had any questions about what it was like. But.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you. Are you interested in the citizen's comment or observing? Oh, sorry. Okay, wonderful. All right. So I don't see anyone else here for citizens' comments, so we can move on.
I thought we were waiting for 8 o'clock.
No, we were going to move on with discussion, and then if anyone arrives at 8, we will be happy to.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Thank you.
So there truly are a couple of ways that we can begin our discussion and deliberation and potential vote. So one is we could certainly just leave it open for discussion, and then at whatever point that someone would like to make a motion, for one of the finalists, you are welcome to do so. The perception or the concern with that could be that the other candidates don't have the opportunity to be discussed at length. But it's certainly a way that it can be done. And I checked in with our legal counsel just to get guidance as to the process. So that is a typical process about how this is handled. And I believe that that's what we used when choosing the interim superintendent. There is another way where Alan had explained it to me that it's a rank order. So what you can do is go around the table and you would assign a rating system. So a 1 would be, your first choice, let's say. A 2 would be the second choice. A 3 would be your third choice of the 3 candidates. We can go around the table, one by one in alphabetical order of the finalists. We can get that tally, and that would essentially eliminate one candidate just based on that process. And then we could go into a more in-depth discussion about the 2 remaining candidates. So, I really would like to hear from the committee members as to which process.
Can I add to that?
Yeah,
though?
absolutely.
So before we got to that point of maybe trying to whittle it down, repeating again, our job is to figure out the best fit. We have some great candidates here. So before we get to that part, we should probably have a conversation regarding, what we heard from the interviews and, share what we liked and so forth for every candidate. And then we'd have the benefit, and I'd have the benefit of hearing things that I didn't pick up and the value of the comments and perspectives, so that when we get to the point of maybe ranking the candidates, we've got a pretty good perspective of the whole committee. To guide that process, what I did was I tallied up where, from the rating scale, where each candidate have for a numerical value. But the point of that was only to help me think things through, so that when we got to the point, if we decide to sort of rank them, how many think that this candidate is the best fit as number 1, number 2, number 3, and do that. That then does, I think, due diligence, and also I think the candidates could feel pretty good, all of them, about the due diligence that we use. But I wouldn't want us to rush to or move too quickly to that until we've had a chance to share our thoughts about each one of the interviews.
Okay, is there any objection to that plan? Okay, so who would like to lead the discussion? Don't be shy.
Well, which candidate you want to start with? So we should focus on each.
Okay.
So let's start with, who do we interview first? Patricia
Well,
Kinsella.
Okay. All right, who would like to start us off?
Well, I guess I can jump in there just to get us started.
We're not typically a shy
Only
group.
to get us started. One of the things that I liked about her interview is that she went back and sort of did reflection of where we are, where we were, where we are, and provide some vision of where we could be. And I thought that was refreshing, and I was glad she provided that in her interview. She has a lot of good ideas. I think she has provided the support. When we hired her as an interim, we were thinking interim. We weren't thinking permanent, and so it was a little bit unfair, because as I reflect in my own involvement in that, I wish I had said, we're hiring an interim, but everybody needs a mentor, even an interim. And I wish I had put forward that we should hire someone at least for a couple months to provide some direction and some assistance and support. We didn't do that. And I do want to say, going forward, whomever we hire, that we need to give some thought about some kind of a mentor to provide some support, at least in the beginning, even though, she's sort of cut her teeth in a regional school district. And so in each one of the categories, I thought she did a really good job in answering the questions, some a little better than others, but I had fairly substantial ratings for her across the board. So those would be my comments.
Thank you. Raina?
I'll say I also appreciated the vision that Patricia has, she's had the opportunity to work with the district, see some of the strengths and some of the challenges, and has been very forward-thinking throughout the time that she's been here, and I appreciate that. I really appreciate hearing from the staff about how visible she's been and how collaborative she's been. I think that's something I value in a leader, and it's great to hear that from the staff. So I like those qualities in her.
Mm-hmm.
I think she's been very hardworking and really invested in the community, and that's been very valuable.
Thank you. Karen?
Yes, thank you. I will probably echo what several people have already said, and I found as we got to the latter half of the questions, when she had an opportunity to reflect on what she'd learned about our place and how we work, and the vision for the future, as both of you have mentioned already, then it became very clear that she understands the district and she can build on those shared values that we talked about. However, we also need to, as someone else mentioned, acknowledge that she has the benefit of having been here for a year and getting to know us much better than the other two candidates. So, I rated her very highly, and she does have some advantages with her experience here. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Anyone else? Robin?
Just trying to write I'm trying to be concise. I thought all three of them were extremely qualified, and I thank you, the committee, for their work. I do think that when I looked at Pat, and then having her come first, and then listening to the other two, I think what stood out to me most is that it seems like a lot of what I liked that the other candidates brought up, Pat had already been working on, or had already been collaborative that we knew, had already looked and talked to us about a facilities planning. So that made it, that just made it interesting to me that the things that I liked that they said about special education and all those kind of things, we already had that. We already had it, and we've had it for a couple months under really tough circumstances. I was thinking back in August when she came in, that mold issue, and then trying to move forward and follow through on all of her ideas and vision. And I feel like she's right at the point where we're like, okay, now we can go to those visions. And so that was just my thoughts.
Mm. Thank you. Anyone else? Nathan?
Yeah, just to kind of speak to that, I mean, it is an advantage being the interim superintendent. She's familiar with the district. That's also a positive going forward because, like you were saying, she's already kind of seen our warts and has thought about remedies to them. I'm not saying that the other two candidates wouldn't figure that out, but it certainly leads to a better transition. I think she's a candidate that will need a strong business manager. I think that we need to make sure that she has that support and could benefit from a mentor. And I don't know to what level. It could be, a day or two a week, but just someone with a regional experience who could help guide her.
Thank you, Nathan.
I was hoping other people would, since I was chair of this, I was hoping other people would comment first. So if anyone else wants to, I'll go last.
I will.
Okay.
So I'll piggyback on what Robin was saying about through the interview tonight, she spoke a lot about experiences actually in the past and in here. But to as Robin was saying, that she's ready to kind of take the next step. She's started to do some foundational work, and that's when I started to see her get excited towards the end of the interview as like, we haven't even gotten there yet, and we haven't even gotten there yet. And so to have gone through these past few months as an interim, and then all of a sudden see that excitement and that light of still wanting to move forward, didn't seem like lip service, and it didn't come from the pie in the sky, you know, when I become superintendent, possibly this is what I would like to do. She kind of knows what she's getting herself into, and she's still putting herself out there, and she went through this process, and she's I think that we have heard from a faculty member. I think that to pull in a little bit from what I saw at the open forums and how she answered questions and interacted, she shared more about who she was and her background and her experiences that our community probably had no idea about. And so those who were in that forum today really got a nice exposure to that. So I think today gave me so much more of a deeper understanding of who she is as a superintendent moving forward, that if we had not done the process, or if she had not really dove in and went through the process, I wouldn't have had this information gathered to compare, I guess, with other candidates.
Thank you. Michelle? Or it was Stephanie, sorry.
I can go. We don't have any citizens' comments on there or anything, right?
No.
Okay. So I agree. I think she does have advantages since she has been a part of our district since the beginning of August. But as with any new job, you don't really know it for the first full year. You're learning it. So I think she's at that point now where she's just going to take the ball and go running, as if she hasn't already, because she's faced a lot of obstacles this past year. I have to say that I also think it's excellent that she's still, even though she had to go through the whole interviewing process again, she never gave up. She didn't think like, oh, I'm already getting the job because I'm already here. Right. She's still working for it. She's still working for us. And I think that, you know, she has had some challenges as well, you know, with not having a permanent business manager, and we've had to face a budget and negotiations and facility issues and all of these things. I think that she is doing an excellent job as an interim, when all we really were looking for in August was somebody to steer the course and get us through this year so we could breathe and go through this process again. And I think that she has excelled at that and has really proven that. So we're very lucky that we've had an interviewing process for the last school year. And I think we do have difficult decisions tonight because the other two candidates are outstanding. But those are my thoughts on her.
Thank you. Anyone else?
So I had the advantage of calling for references. And what stood out with everyone that I spoke to is they always said that she dug in and did what had to be done in so many situations, and we are all better off for it. And I want to echo what Stephanie and Melissa said, because I think we really have learned who she is, and she has put herself out there in many different ways. And I appreciate that she still wants to be a superintendent for our district. And we, you know, did our due process by going through many candidates. We really have 3 very good candidates, and so I'm also interested in talking about the other 2.
Thank you. So, you know, I've been thinking about the the advantage of being the interim superintendent, and really what Stephanie was speaking to, really she's been on a school year job interview. So that could have gone either way, right? So it could be seen as an advantage if she's doing a great job. It could be seen as a disadvantage if she wanted the job, but she hasn't been doing a great job. So, you know, I think that we have really had a gift of getting to know her on this extended job interview. As the chair of the school committee, I have the privilege of working very closely with the superintendent. So I wanted to share my thoughts, you know, with my perspective as chair, because I do have a different relationship with the superintendent than most of the school committee members have. So I said, effective school committees lead as a united team with the superintendent, each from their respective roles, with strong collaboration and mutual trust. As chair of the school committee, I am entrusted with the responsibility of working closely with the superintendent, with a shared focus on student achievement and to accomplish the mission, vision, and goals of the district. Given the nature of the professional collaboration between the superintendent and the school committee chair, I feel it's meaningful to share my observations with you regarding our current interim superintendent, Patricia Kinsella. Patricia leads efficient and effective meetings by establishing mutually agreed upon goals and expectations and creating well-planned agendas. She has been instrumental in making progress on items that have been stagnant for a very long time. Patricia is data and tech savvy with her focus on driving improvement, even while presenting current challenges in the district. Patricia is skilled in communication and composes thoughtful letters to families, teachers, staff, administration, town boards, communities, and the school committee. This communication includes general updates, upcoming events, situations that may occur that would affect daily operations in the school buildings, and most notably to celebrate the achievements of the children, staff, teachers, and administrators of the Pioneer School District. Patricia is a model of servant leadership who takes her work to heart and lives and breathes her commitment to the school district. Not only does she put in the regular hours of a typical workday, she can be seen in the early morning hours, into the evenings, and on weekends, offering to help wherever it is needed and genuinely devoted to the betterment of our children's learning environment. In summary, the time I spend working with our current interim superintendent is an honor. She is an intelligent, strong, empathetic, and inspirational leader who is also humble, joyful, and displays grace and composure under pressure. She is a thoughtful, caring person who goes out of her way to make people feel valued and appreciated. She is authentic, she is genuine, and she is a member of our own community, which is a rare gift. She is selfless in her approach to make this district one we can all be proud of. I will carry what I have observed and learned from her leadership with me throughout my lifetime. So, any further comments? All right. So, we can move on then?
Sure. I'll take the lead, I guess, in beginning. Other
You
than
know
the,
you would anyway.
Yeah, other than living in the community, you know, I do have to say that I think that had Pat Gardner had the opportunity to do what Patricia did, as I was listening to you and listening to the interviews and doing the site visit, I think you would have written pretty much the same thing for Pat Gardner, because the words that you selected were right on point with both Patricia and what I've learned about Pat Gardner. So having said that, it was clear to me that, and now I'm looking at the Kiva experience, the site visit, the interview, and particularly to what people said and especially the town administrator, and how people talked about her when she wasn't around, which was really, really good. As a matter of fact, many of the people we met with, I liked the fact that she didn't, you're going to talk to this person and this person. She gave that to the administrators to decide who. So it wasn't like she was afraid to, in terms of who do you want to talk to. We want you to come in here and talk to whoever. And matter of fact, I gave that responsibility to this and this and this, and it is what it is. So that was very impressive. She is an experienced superintendent. She gets the job. She knows the job. She has the depth and breadth that I would expect for the position. She also is a visionary. And what was interesting was she talked about saving the district money. It wasn't just about that. When she was bringing students back into the district, because there was a lot of money in transportation on expensive special education programs, she didn't say, oh, we got to save money, we have to do that. That was on her radar screen. But she worked with the families. She went to their houses. She invited them in, talked about what they were getting out of the program they were in. What would it take? What would they need in order for them to come back to the district? So it didn't come across here, but there was so much planning and reaching out and collegiality and work that went into that before that went forward. When we heard about how the community was so invested in the school, they didn't want it to close. They had gone to school there, it was their school, and so they looked at, they're going to have to make a decision about closing that. She took a long time. Again, what does the school mean to you? What could we do to have that same feeling in this new school, your kids would be going to? So she spent a lot of time in process before and in transition before she, brought that initiative forward. And she did it when people were ready. And, that's a real attribute for a leader, to know how extensive should the process be, and at what point do you eventually have to say, okay, I think I have enough information to make a decision. And as administrators had said, she gets our input and then she makes a decision. And some of us don't like it, but we so respect her and we understand why she made it, so we support it. So I saw so many things that I expected to see out of a seasoned, experienced superintendent. I don't think it can come across in just, what was it, a 35, 40-minute interview? And even it's hard to come across when you do site visits. But there's no doubt in my mind that had she had that, if we had 3 months with Pat and 3 months with Patricia and 3 months with Pat, we'd probably have a tie. So there are obviously some clear advantages when you invest in someone and you they have an opportunity to benefit. What I think is really good about this is, and I agree, someone said this, going through this process, it really gave a comparison of people that interviewed shined in different ways. And so I'm going to go back because I am so close to how I would vote that I'd like the whittling down process. But I have to keep reminding myself now in this process who is the best fit, because either of these two right now, in my mind, would do a spectacular job. One might take a little bit longer, but being a seasoned superintendent, not as long as you think. So I will stop there.
Thank you, Alan. Jim?
Yeah. I found her very accessible. And
Is this Pat Gardner?
Yes.
I just wanted to get it straight in my mind.
Pat, Patricia. She was succinct and brief. She was able to draw me in. There was a certain humility. And when she said, if schools are not safe, nothing really matters. Well, that says it all. So anyway.
Great. Thank you. Karen, your hand is raised. Oh,
Thank you. I think two main things jumped out at me throughout the interview. One was she always came back to the individual student, almost always with examples or where the emphasis should be. And she had a lot of insight into how to get the best out of any individual, or at least try to, especially when she said, there's no excuse, there is no replacement for a personal relationship. That's foremost. And I think that was shown to be the case in the examples she gave for her interactions with students and with community members and with staff and so forth. The second thing that stood out to me was a consistent reflection on the importance of ethics, moral, and values throughout her thought process and the way she envisioned a school district should be. So that's my thoughts.
thank you, Karen.
Mm-hmm.
Jeannie?
I just want to go back on what Karen just said. I don't know how to express it, but I was a little surprised but very pleased when Pat spoke about ethical and moral. That's frequently two words that aren't used in public these days, and I commend her for that, and the fact that they are so important to her says a lot about her.
Thank you. Anyone else? Raina?
I was impressed with how she really had a sense of her business knowledge and, this needing a capital plan and really using that planning process and goals to create change. I thought that was very impressive. Just she seemed to really have a good grasp of how that can be used to your advantage.
Melissa, can you help me for a second? Was it Patricia Gardner who, in the second interview, first spoke about how they proactively, she had brought in people to do the mental health piece with the staff?
Yes.
It was her, okay. I was in the public forum, she talked about that, and I think probably because she was a seasoned and already doing the job, that she had kind of proactively brought in that mental health piece in the beginning, and everyone recognized that was an issue, but I felt like she was very proactive in doing something and meeting some needs, which I thought was excellent. I also thought she was very clear and passionate about the special needs and also how she did address that. I agree with you. I guess I just echo what you had said. I think if she had been Pat, number one, Pat one, what is it? The new old Christine or whatever it is there. I think we'd be in this same boat. I felt like she was really, I'd love to get to know that. I mean, all these women were just powerful and impressive.
Melissa?
So I'll share some of the things that I took away from today. I'll share a little bit about our site visits. It was really interesting to see and nice to see how each candidate interacted and moved throughout the building, whether they felt comfortable, whether they didn't. Again, Pat made a very conscious decision to introduce herself to everyone. Hi, I'm Pat Gardner. So nice to meet you. We were walking down the hallway at one point, and all of a sudden she put her fist out to fist bump the kids, and they knew exactly what to do. They were like, oh, yeah, right there. And so that was a really fun interaction. The other situation, we had gone into a classroom, and the teacher had prepped her students saying there's going to be visitors today, a superintendent candidate's going to be coming to visit. And so the question must have been from these, students, well, what's a superintendent? And so they talked about the boss's boss. And they were like, what? And so the kids so she was introduced as the boss's boss and engaged with kids, asked what they were doing, really talked to staff, and then also asked us questions too. Tell me more. Her curiosity and wanting to know more about the building, the staff, everything was just so, there wasn't really a quiet moment. It was constantly moving and talking and wanting to know about the district. I also saw her handle under pressure a question that was presented at the open forum that was disguised as a question, but very pointed. There was a very clear reason why the question was being pointed or being asked, and she started to answer it because she knew what the question was, and then she said, "But I'm not quite sure why you're asking me this question, but so here's the situation," and she explained it, and she shared afterwards that she had some some questions about that particular question being posed to her, but and I apologized if it made her feel uncomfortable. If at any point she was like, "Oh gosh, no," she's like, "I expected it." She's like, when there's articles that are written, I expect things. So I think, again, as we've said, comparing Patricia and Pat, I've now also seen under my own eyes someone who has come at someone with a pointed question and how she handled that situation too. So I will add that to the knowledge for those of you that weren't able to attend the forum.
Thank you.
Can you say what the question was, Melissa?
The question was, what school district did you leave after 2015?
Yep. Okay. Anyone else? Michelle, did you want to share reflections on the reference check?
Well, I echo what everyone has said here, and you definitely can see a seasoned superintendent. One of the things that I really liked was she has a superintendent's advisory committee.
Mm-hmm.
And I think something like that may deflect a lot of rumors or things that are going on or people don't understand. And maybe that's something that, whoever we choose, we may want to recommend that. Start it off, I don't know, slowly. I mean, they have so much to do. I don't know if they can take on another thing. But I was impressed with that. Anyways.
Did you want to speak to the reference check?
Oh, yeah. The people that I spoke with in Palmer, boy, my. Well, what I want to say is that the attributes that Nathan and Stephanie and Alan came out with, it echoes the references so much. And the three people I talked to were so engaged about her. And they said she led the district. They had no improvement plan, no evaluation process for teachers, and no strategic plan. And they were all excited to have worked on various committees with her to come up with this plan. The other thing is there was a peer from Western Mass, and she said, I hope to have her closer to me and continue working with her because she's a breath of knowledge.
All right. Thank you. Karen, your hand is raised.
Yeah, just very quickly to piggyback on what Michelle said. Many, many years ago, when I was a teacher in even more Western Mass than this, I was part of a superintendent's advisory committee, and that was a fantastic experience. Dr. Wood would always give us an assignment, like a research article or a new type of curriculum to look at. We would talk about that, and it made an ordinary classroom teacher feel like they were valued to a high degree. And I think it's a great idea. Thanks.
Thanks, Karen. I kept making a mental note to acknowledge that it's Teachers Week, Teacher Appreciation Week. So I just wanted to put a shout out there to all of our current teachers, our past teachers.
Yeah. And if I could just add, as part of our visit, both the Bernardston and Northfield PTOs did a tremendous job showing that appreciation.
That's great.
Yeah, setting
Great
up
to
their teachers' lounges, and yeah, it was really.
Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah, they're going to do it all week long. So.
Yeah.
Oh, how nice.
Yeah. Yep.
Some of the notes I made about Patricia Gardner, I wrote down to earth right at the top. You know, she seemed like someone, as Jim mentioned, just very approachable and comfortable right from the moment she started to speak. And I just love that about people. You know, I did think that she had a couple of unique strategies or comments that our other two finalists didn't mention. She mentioned with leadership how she wants the principals to run the schools and that she leads from the back, which we don't typically hear that. So it's something where if we had had the opportunity to have more dialogue, I would have loved to kind of hear about the operations of that and how the strategy around that. She also mentioned how each school has their own budget, so she budgets them separately in these buckets of money. So that was just an interesting approach that I would have loved to hear more about. You know, with the down to earth, just it sounds like she communicates with staff, teachers, and kids with ease, which is just such a wonderful attribute to have. She certainly is seasoned with dealing with town administrators, you know, and she spoke to things that may have potential conflict, how they're able to navigate those very well with the mutual goals, you know, being the focus. Let's see here. And you know, she likes a small school district. And, you know, with that, you know, I think that she would be even more available to have the visibility that she really seems to value. She put a lot of focus on hiring quality teachers. So not only does the curriculum need to be sound, but that, you know, if the teachers aren't sound that are delivering the material or working with the kids, it just won't work. Yeah, so those are the comments that I had written about Patricia Gardner.
Like, just a comment on a couple of things. The principals saw her as a resource, and so she lets them do their job, but they feel really comfortable calling up and saying, hey, I'm dealing with this issue. Can you give me some, you know, some advice or some thinking? So that was really nice to hear because, you know, the principals certainly didn't have to say that. The other thing that was interesting is that she was well aware of the community, even though she had one. So she worked on the district plan, but she also looked to find out what are you going to be spending money on in Palmer? What's your capital plan? And she was very cognizant of, okay, if you can give us this money here, next year when you need to buy this fire truck or make this improvement in this building, then we'll acknowledge that. And so there was this working back and forth of support the schools, support what we're doing, and you have your turn with capital, we have our turn with capital, and so that was pretty impressive.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it was clear she was a seasoned superintendent.
Mm-hmm. All right, any further comments or discussion before we move on to Cynthia Kennedy? All right, Alan, you take it away.
Okay.
You would anyway. No, I'm just, I had to say it twice.
That's all right. So what's interesting is that, again, we're looking for the best fit, not just the best fit. We're looking for the best fit now, you know, at this point in time. And so I liked so many of the things that she has been contributing to her district. I like the lead role that she's been given by the administration and by the superintendent, and how much that she has gone out of her way to do far more than what her role required. And I think they had seen that as a huge benefit to the district. And I was not surprised to learn that she was a finalist, or is a finalist, in her own district. So she has a lot of skills, and she's been developing them. I think that she is someone who would come in and just start to try to learn as much as she could in being in a new role as superintendent, because she hasn't been in that role before. That she would, I think she could be successful, but I want success now and as we move forward. So I would give her high marks in terms of her work ethics and her being committed to education and her passion for education. And she's doing so much work in the classroom in working with the interventionist specialists and promoting student learning, identifying power standards, setting very high standards within the district. I mean, she is doing some amazing things to improve instruction, and that's basically, you know, our focus. But she also had been working in collaborative relationships to provide additional support in the district, whether it be having forums with parents about COVID and kind of, you know, talking through that and hearing their concerns and working in partnership with them. She has, it was clear that there was a lot of confidence in her abilities, and so she was given, I think, a lot of leeway, but it always came back to, when we had the site visit, to her passion about kids and her connection to the classroom and her connection to student learning. She recognized the emotional and social health and had been working and writing grants, as you heard, you know, to do something about that. So she was very impressive. She's got a little bit way to go in my from my point of view. However, we had some really strong candidates. So she's in the thick of this decision. So I think that she could do a good job. I think this would be a learning curve that she could be up for the challenge, but there's going to be a little bit of delay as she gets up to speed.
Thank you. All right, anyone else? Jim?
Yeah, I don't disagree with Alan in terms of what he's explaining is that, yeah, there are two candidates that have experience, et cetera, et cetera. But I was really taken with this woman. She came across in the beginning, she was kind of breathless, she was a little bit, and then she started to calm down. And I wrote down a lot of quotes from her. She had a lot of really nice things to say. We're all tired. We're all tired. She expressed compassion as being really important because there's not enough compassion in the world, and that's really true. And she wanted kids to be academically curious and good. So she had a lot of really good things to say. So
Thanks,
stand
Jim.
on that.
Thanks. Karen.
Mute.
Oh, you need to unmute, Karen.
Yeah. There were some important things she had to say for sure. And one was the importance of learning citizenship, learning it in the community of the school first and applying it elsewhere. I also like that she mentioned how curriculum doesn't really matter that much if the instruction isn't good, and that the two of them go hand in hand. That was very good thing. And she wasn't reluctant to acknowledge that probably her weakness was budget, writing budget, and that she would need help with that. But she was starting to learn it now already. And yeah, she was very upfront. I like that a lot.
Thank you, Karen. Robin.
Just a quick note, I did notice that she was really organized in answering the questions. She went right down the line, and there wasn't like a lot of fluff there. It was very concise and straight and to the point. And I really liked the comment about what she did with the paraprofessionals. Also, when they were struggling, that she instituted a program to support them. So I liked her a lot too. I liked them all.
Thank you. Raina?
So I, again, would echo some of the things that that Alan had to say. I think, her passion for education really came through. She had really great energy. I liked what she said about asking other people for what they, ask them what they need, ask the students, ask the staff to identify what they need. And I also really liked what she said about special education services being services that are provided to general ed students. And I felt that spoke a lot to her philosophy and her passion for education. She was a great candidate, but I also feel like she will have a bit of a learning curve. She wasn't not as seasoned as certainly as Patricia Gardner is. And I feel like we've kind of done a little bit of that learning curve with Patricia Kinsella. So
Thank you. Melissa?
Sure. So I'll start off first with a little bit of a site visit. So she was our 10 a.m.
You mean the tour, right?
The tour.
Yep.
Yeah, sorry.
Yep.
Tour. Yes, building tours. And we started at 10 a.m. And to give you a little background, Bernardston had MCAS going on today. Pioneer also had AP exams happening. So there was, lots of stuff going on in the schools. So 10 a.m. school's getting going, and Dr. Carrier said she had her 2 radios in her hand, and she's like, if I get called, I might have to go. And Cynthia said, I've always said that you're not a principal unless you're wearing sneakers. And it just gave us that moment of laughter of like, you got it, right? And so what was also interesting to see between Cynthia and Pat is Pat comes from the high school world, right? Which is where I come from. And then Cindy comes from, the elementary school world. And so she very similar to Pat as she interacted with the kids. We stepped into an art classroom where they were doing Picasso's flower bouquet. And so she stepped right up and was talking to a student about what they were painting and what they were doing, and chatting that way. And so it really was able to give the candidates a real look into the daily operations of our school, and it didn't faze any of them, right? And especially with Cindy coming from a elementary school background, what I really gleaned from everything today was that she wanted to know more. There's so much to learn, right? And if she didn't know, she'd ask the questions, and really wanted to know. One of her questions to me, actually, at the tour was, what's the parent involvement here? How are they involved? Which came up because she had we had introduced her to Tony Streeter, the custodian, and we were talking about how important every single person, regardless of your title, is in creating a community. And so a conversation came up about, PTO or whatever. She was like, oh, how is, family involvement here? And so she definitely used the time in the tour to also ask a little bit more about us, as a community. In her responses, I think, as we've identified, budget is definitely something that she would need help on. If we had a solid business manager in place, ready to go, she could learn and merge with that. What was the other thing? There was questions for candidates at the forum that said, when you researched our district, what would you want to improve on? And with that, math. Math. Like she has gone to DESE, she has researched our profiles, she has looked at the data. She went through that data, on our school, and spoke to that. So just in general, between Cindy and Pat, they weaved in their experiences with the building tour and the forum in all of their questions. So that was a theme that I saw in both of them. And I am specifically, for clarification, using Pat for Pat Gardner and Patricia, because Pat made it very clear multiple times at our initial interview and also at the forum that she's Pat. She's Pat. She's Pat when she's at home. She's Pat when she's at work. She's Pat.
And Patricia's Patricia.
Correct. And Patricia is Patricia.
Yes.
Correct. Priscilla, so.
Right. Oh, that's true. We blame Stephanie for no.
And then Priscilla.
Sorry.
Yes. So
That's right.
right.
I didn't do it this time.
Right.
You had to say that again. Now it's
Right.
So just in clarification, just as I was speaking, just so everyone, if you're following what I was saying, Pat
No, thank
versus
you.
Patricia versus Sydney.
Made perfect sense.
Stephanie.
Yeah, what I can say about Cynthia is that she is super motivated. I was really impressed that she had researched our school. She said she had watched several school committees, which I also thought was impressive.
God bless her.
God bless her. I also like how she mentioned the Superintendent Advisory Council as well.
She did.
And how motivated she is to learn about budgets, getting mentorship from her current superintendent, trying to learn as much as possible, going above and beyond in her role. I liked professional development that she's done, and, creative ways for those internet issues that she said that the school district had. And I also, my favorite quote about her was that she's very data driven, but behind the data is a human.
Yeah.
That really set well with me.
Yeah.
I think that she will be excellent as a superintendent. I am just a little cautious that having it be a first year being here might not be what Pioneer needs. So I am saddened by that because I really do think that she's a fantastic candidate and I think she's going to do really great things. I just, with our current state, I don't know if it would be the right fit for us at this time.
And if I could just go on that.
Yeah.
I don't know if we'd be the best fit for her
Mm.
as well.
Right.
I agree. I mean, we have three
True.
really
So
good
true.
candidates.
Mhm.
It's an extremely tough decision. What we have to look at is the best fit for right now.
For Pioneer.
Yep.
Yeah.
Michelle?
Well, everyone has said what I was thinking. The only thing that I wanted to comment on, I loved what, how she answered the student-centered question about the competencies that, to master before they get to high school. And she said writing and critical thinkers. And I think so many, and she said it, so many people have lost their writing skills. And, you know, that's just something, she just said it so quickly that, I like that. But, I don't think that at this point, she's a great person. You know, she had wonderful references, and everyone wants her to be a superintendent, but I don't think we are the district to offer that to her at this time with everything going on, you know.
Thank you. I took so many notes on everything. It's like a scribe. I'm like, calm down. You don't have to write every single thing they say. I wrote energetic and passionate about education. You know, so it came of no surprise to me that she said that she had a blackboard in her bedroom as a little girl, which I think is just really, really cool. And it shows all of these years later that she still is able to maintain that level of passion and excitement about education. I like how she said that, you know, her job as superintendent would be to support the people, you know, under her leadership to do the jobs that they do best. That is a servant leader model, which I really appreciate. She talked about professional development quite a bit and supporting teachers with their professional development goals. She did talk very fast, and but I think that is what, you know, certainly it goes hand in hand with her energy and her passion.
Yeah, and she's under a time limit too. I think
True.
when you say,
Yeah, she
3
might,
minutes,
and
get everything in.
yeah, and like Robin said, she was very diligent in answering every part of the question. So she seems like she would be a very organized person that would make sure no stone was unturned. That was just the impression I got. I liked that, you know, she has experience collaborating with municipal leaders. You know, she mentioned the fiber optics project and how she organized community forums and whatnot regarding that. And how, you know, she helped bring internet. So, like, she's obviously very focused on, again, going back to making sure that people have what they need to do their jobs well. And that can seem like such a rudimentary concept, but it's essential. It goes along with safety. And by the way, everyone mentioned safety as paramount. Yeah, so absolutely, I think that she deserves a shot at being a superintendent. You know, I think she's certainly ready for that step. But when, you know, I want to echo the sentiments of what I've heard quite a few of you say is we need to look at, you know, the timing. So while I feel like she is certainly qualified and ready for that step, I don't think it is the right time for our school district to have someone who's completely new to the role. Does anyone else have any comments?
I have one other comment that it's a general thing, and I meant to say this
Mhm.
first, but I just want to thank the subcommittee for all of your hard work and all of the information that you've provided to us, the additional reflections and information that you've provided going on the tour, the site visits, and you've given us some really great candidates, and I feel like we've been really, I'm really grateful for that.
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely. I had that written down too, Raina. I said kudos to the committee. I haven't, you know, and it was an enormous amount of work. And, you know, it also is something that saved us. You know, we could have had the MASC handle the search process and facilitate the search process for us, you know, for $10,000. So, you know, we also saved the district a lot of money by taking it on ourselves. So, and also included in that are the community members, the teachers, the parents, the union representatives. They all were involved in that process as well. So, you know, really we want to thank everyone for getting us here.
And I'll echo, it was a great experience, and we need to write this down for the next time.
Nathan?
Yeah, I again wanted to thank everyone who was involved. We had really great people on all the subcommittees. We will be doing this again. So we've been keeping track. Even in the best case scenario, this is a step we're going to have to do periodically. So we should. I was really glad that we did it instead of having MASC do it. It gave us much better insight to all the candidates, and that was reflected by the candidates. Some of them thanked us for doing this ourselves. It really shows a commitment by our district. So I know we don't want to do it again, but we're going to. So we did keep track of what we're doing. We're writing down what we learned, what we can do better. We'll be more than happy to share that.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
So, would everyone like to, you know, I think that it's pretty clear, just from what I've heard. Let me finish, Alan. It's 8:49, I'll start to get cheeky. What would you like to suggest? Go right ahead, actually.
I think we can do due diligence, and one way to do this is you would say go alphabetically, because the search subcommittee brought forward candidates that they thought could be successful in the district. And like I said before, now we have to find the best match. So you could ask how many would rank, and who would be first? Patricia Gardner as number. So you're going to vote more than once. So how many would vote her as a 1, a 2, and a 3? And then put that aside. Then go to the next candidate. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Now we'll get it. That may in itself, because we've considered everyone, that in itself, that process might make it obvious who the candidate would be, or if it's that close that you have a little more conversation, and then make and then you could then make a recommendation on who to go forward. So it's objective. I think it's clean, and it's like I said, we're doing due diligence. So someone would have to keep track of the voting for the 1, 2, 3. 1 being the best, 2 next, and 3 next.
Okay. I can keep track with Stephanie as my wing woman here, verifying everything. Okay, so is everyone agreeable to that process? Or if you're not, just speak up. Okay. So we will begin with Patricia Gardner. Are there, how many people would rank Patricia Gardner as a 1, which means the top candidate? Okay.
Because you're going to vote again.
Mm-hmm. So we have 1,
4, 5.
And then Karen has her hand raised. So 5?
That'd be 6.
Oh, 6. Okay. All right. And
then rank her as how many would vote her as 2.
Okay. How many would rank her as the second or 2? So
4, 5.
And David.
Oh, David.
Yep.
6.
Okay. And how many would rank her as 3? Oh yeah, that's 12, isn't it? Oh, there we go. Okay, thank you.
Our coffees didn't show up.
You're right, exactly. No pizza, no coffee. All right. So that is 6 votes for 1 and 6 votes for 2. Cynthia Kennedy. So who would rank her as a 1? Okay, I don't see any. As a 2. Okay, I don't see any. And as a 3, so that would be all 12 of us. Thank you. Okay. And Patricia Kinsella. Okay, how many will rank her as a 1? And David?
9.
Okay, that's 9 of us. How many will rank her as a 2? 4. So that's 4.
Wait,
That's
how-
13.
wait, 13.
Yeah, how
Yep.
did you come up with 13?
Alan
But
voted twice.
I voted,
Yeah, you can't vote
I
twice.
can't-
Oh, you voted twice. You tried to pull a fast
Jim,
one on
I
us.
messed that up.
All right, so that is the 12. Okay.
So are there
Yeah.
3 then, we're saying, or
3. There was
oh, was
3.
the first one supposed to be 8?
No, the first one was 9, and then Alan voted twice erroneously. So there's 3. Yep.
Okay.
Says I 12.
So that's 12. Yep. All right. So, it appears that, our 2 finalists would be, as far as this rank voting, Patricia Gardner and Patricia Kinsella, with Patricia Kinsella receiving a majority of the rank votes for our first choice. Is there further discussion, or, we can entertain a motion, but I want to give everyone the opportunity to discuss it further or make a motion.
I want to make a motion.
Okay.
I would like to make a motion that we offer Patricia Kinsella the position as permanent superintendent. Is that the right word?
It is.
I'll second.
All right.
Excuse me, and is this for 1 year?
Negotiations will be separate from this. You negotiate the contract.
Right, the contract, but we also can have some I think the committee needs some direction on how long of a term.
I would entertain that it would be more than 1 year.
That's a great point, though.
It is.
Because we should provide some parameters to the
And
position.
Certainly, it would need to be based on evaluation.
I know that we don't want to get into the 5-year thing we got into.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm
Yes.
saying.
But I don't know what the legality is of, for
I
us
think
to
that,
decide that.
the purposes for this evening are to,
David, did you have something you wanted to add?
Well, no great basis, but I'd recommend 3. 3-year, but not automatic. But I think if we talk to council, I don't know. We don't want to be back doing this again in another year, folks.
No.
Things are working out.
But
There needs to be renewal, and I think that given the market for superintendents, I'm not sure it's really reasonable to ask somebody to sign up for just 1 year and go through this again.
No.
But I agree with you wholly, David, on it certainly would be based on evaluation.
Yeah.
yeah, so, Patricia's current contract is through the end of June, so, I think the purposes of this meeting tonight was to make our choice, and then we would enter into negotiations regarding the contract. First, we would, of course, come to a consensus as to what we would want to offer.
So 2 points. One of them, Melissa, is there anything that you recall, because you've gone through the policy very carefully, do you have any policy that, or Karen, that you can think of that governs this aspect?
Wait, so we have a second on the motion, right?
But,
Okay,
so now we're
perfect.
discussing. I
Yes,
seconded it.
perfect.
I seconded it.
So I don't have that committed to memory. it might be in a Mass General Law, because where I get confused with terms, like with, so I'm not sure. I do feel like tonight what our job is to decide who we'd like to offer the position to, and then we go through the negotiation process, and then that within it talks about the number of years based on the evaluation process, based on, everything that would go within a contract. That happens within the next steps, because whoever we choose with the motion, they still have to accept.
Yes.
So,
Good point.
so there's that. So that.
Yeah, and that's the process we followed with the interim superintendent. We made our choice. And then the offer was made pending contract negotiations. So you find out if you never know, someone may have accepted another position or be mulling over another position, so.
Right.
So to that point,
1 second, does David had his hand raised?
I wonder if there is a consensus that we expect to negotiate something longer than 1 year, but not 5 years? Is everybody pretty well agreed to that?
Yeah.
That would just overarch the negotiations.
Yeah,
Get a
I
little
think
step.
everybody's nodding their head yes.
Everyone is nodding their heads, yes, yes.
Definitely not 5.
Lest we forget.
All will depend on negotiating the contract.
so
All right,
to
further
follow up.
discussion.
Yes, one of them is that we were always concerned about our timeline, and it ended up that our timeline is ahead of the timelines for other announcements that will be made as people are looking for a superintendent. So that was quite a surprise. The other thing is that the
But we need to take a vote.
what I really liked about this process is because you don't ever know how negotiations are going to go, and there's still some work to be done, but we have confidence in other candidates, and so it has happened that the one candidate that was selected didn't either got another job and turned it down, or decided, or they couldn't come to terms on a contract. And so what I feel good about is that we did a really good process, and if we needed to go to another candidate, we've already expressed that we'd be comfortable with that. So I just want to give kudos to the committee for such a thoughtful and respectful process in your deliberations. So
Excuse me,
you did a great job.
Excuse me, can we take a vote on the motion and then maybe reminisce about all this other stuff?
I think we were still having
Thought we were
discussion,
deliberating.
Jeannie.
Well, I
Deliberating.
think that was okay.
Um,
We were talking about how wonderful the whole process was. I don't know what that bearing that had. The vote.
You keep trying, Jeannie.
Is there further discussion?
I'll make it really quick.
Okay.
So as part of the negotiations, I think we should look at having a mentor, for the length of contract to be determined, but someone to help Patricia Kinsella out with being superintendent of a regional district. And of course, we're going to have to get a manager.
So we can talk about that at another time, but we're putting it on the table. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any further discussion? Okay, Melissa.
Melissa Gary, yes. Right? Yeah.
Yep.
I'm saying yes.
Well, it's your choice.
No, I know. But I'm like,
So the motion was,
approve. What's the right?
yeah, you'd say yes.
Well,
The motion was to,
appoint Patricia Kinsella, offer her the
the job.
position.
Yes.
So then yes.
Jim Bell, no.
Nathan Swartz, yes.
Jeannie Milton, abstain.
Stephanie Winslow, Northfield, yes.
Oh, you're not going. Alan Genovese, Warwick, yes.
Michelle Jeruso, Leiden, yes.
Raina Dasty, Northfield, yes.
Robin Knipe Leiden, yes.
Karen O'Neill Leiden, yes.
David Young, North Warwick, yes.
and Julie Burke, Northfield, yes. All right, so that motion passes with Oh gosh, I had to do that.
One no, one abstain.
10 yeses, 1 no, 1 abstention. All right.
Motion to adjourn and get pizza?
Pizza. Well,
Second.
right. Okay, thank you, everyone. And I will call Patricia and let her know. We do need to vote to adjourn, yes. Melissa?
Melissa, yes.
Jim, yes. I have a mea culpa, a mea maximo culpa. I think you guys did a good job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Nathan Schwartz, yes.
Jeannie Milton, yes.
Stephanie Winslow, yes.
Alan Genovese, yes.
Michelle Druso, yes.
Raina, yes.
Robin, yes.
Karen O'Neill, yes, and thank you, everyone.
David, yes, and good night.
And Julie Burke, yes. Thank you, everyone.
Do I save this 45 seconds for the next?
Thank you for taking